Reform scandal surrounding MP Rupert Lowe continues as the party on top of the polls is thrown into turmoil. This morning, their chief whip, Lee Anderson, has come out saying they've got a monumental task on their hands. And Russia kills at least 14 as they continue to hit the Ukraine with strikes. But as 3 people are convicted for Russian espionage on UK soil, can we really trust Putin to find any peace whatsoever? And a developing story, this emergency services have been called to the Palace of Westminster, or Big Ben as we'll call it, where a man has scaled one of the buildings. Yeah, Big Ben, I know that's the bell. We will keep you up to date on that latest story. And who will be crowned top dog? Crufts 2025 takes place in Birmingham. Our reporter Jack Carson will be there with the latest. No, we haven't entered him. He's reporting on it.
Well, here is the beautiful Flight, who's already won first prize in her class. She's one of 24,000 dogs taking part in Crufts, and as you can see, very excited indeed.
Oh, how cute was that? I'm Dawn Neeson, I'm not that cute. And the weekend starts right here and now. Happy International Women's Day, girls. Hope you're having a good time out there. That's why I'm wearing purple, by the way, for the suffragette colours, which I've had to explain to every boy I bumped into. They just didn't get it, OK? Try harder, gents. OK, but we're talking about whatever you want to talk about today, to be honest with you, because this show is nothing without you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're doing today, including that idiot who's currently at Big Ben. I know it's the Palace at Westminster, but we call it Big Ben, don't we? So we'll be talking about him and letting you know what's happening there, because blocking the bridge that leads to St Thomas's Hospital. Any case, gbnews.com/your say and join in the conversation, whatever you want to chat about, to be honest with you, because that's what we're going to be doing. And keeping me company to do that is political commentator Andy Williams and social policy analyst, I love that, it's very posh, Rakib Ehsan. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen, obviously dressed in suffragette colours. No, but before we get stuck into today's stories, let's get the news with Lewis Mackenzie, who's not wearing suffragette colours, and I give up. Here he is.
I could only apologise, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 12 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. Let's go to that breaking story now. A man has climbed Big Ben draped in a Palestinian flag. At least 9 emergency service vehicles are on Bridge Street at Parliament, with crowds looking on from beyond a police cordon. A Met Police spokesperson says officers are at the scene working to bring the incident to a safe conclusion. They are being assisted by London Fire Brigade and the London Ambulance Services. It's reported that the incident started at around 8 a.m. this morning. A pro-Palestine protest is set to begin outside the BBC offices at 1 p.m. today. It's currently unclear if the two events are related. We'll, of course, bring you the very latest as we have it. At least 12 people have been injured during a shooting at a pub in Toronto. 4 victims have non-life-threatening injuries, but the other conditions are yet unknown. Toronto police say the suspect was wearing a black balaclava and was seen fleeing in a silver car and is still at large. The Reform MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from the party amid allegations he made physical threats against the party chairman, Zia Youssef. Mr Youssef confirmed the party had also received complaints from 2 female employees about serious bullying in Mr Lowe's parliamentary and constituency offices. In a statement, Mr Lowe said he was disappointed but not surprised to learn of what he said were false allegations. He also says that the allegations of bullying at his offices are not about him. He's currently taking legal advice. Donald Trump says he's working hard to get a Ukraine peace deal as soon as possible. The president was speaking in the White House after another major wave of Russian attacks on its neighbour overnight. Mr. Trump said that the Ukraine was taking tremendous punishment and a peace deal was urgently needed.
Settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that, the prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them.
Well, as Dawn mentioned earlier, today marks International Women's Day. The annual celebration aims to champion women's achievements across all aspects of life. Speaking at a visit to RAF Northolt, Chancellor Rachel Reeves met with women personnel in the armed forces.
Well, it's fantastic at RAF at Northolt to be able to meet with women personnel in our armed forces on our front line. International Women's Day is an opportunity to celebrate how far we've come, but also as a government, and for me personally, as the first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer, to redouble our efforts to ensure that we have opportunities for women, which is why we are going further and faster on childcare and breakfast clubs to help parents, but particularly women, balance work and family life.
Tropical storm Alfred has made landfall on Australia's eastern coast. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated, with more than 300,000 homes left without power. The country's Bureau of Meteorology has warned the intense rainfall could lead to flash flooding as the major storm moves further inland. Authorities in the United States have confirmed that the Hollywood actor Gene Hackman died of natural causes a week after his wife Betsy died from hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. It's been claimed that Hackman was not aware his wife had died because of his advanced Alzheimer's. Their bodies were found in their home in New Mexico last week, along with the body of a pet dog. And finally, some good news. 4 European brown bears at Whipsnade Zoo have woken up from hibernation. The bears, Mana, Minnie, Naya and, of course, Cinderella, have finally gotten out of bed after 3 months of deep slumber, signalling the start of spring at the UK's largest zoo. Very nice. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour's time, but now it's back to Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Grace. I'm confused by that. Why is one of those bears called Cinderella? Shouldn't it be Goldilocks at the very least? I mean, that's right, isn't it? It was Goldilocks and the 3 bears. My pal looking at me like a completely bonkers. Any case, let's get straight into today's story, shall we? MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from Reform UK amid allegations he made physical threats against the party chairman, Zia Youssef. Their chief whip, Lee Anderson, says they now have a monumental task on their hands, saying that he bears, quote, no malice toward Rupert, and to remove the whip was a deeply painful thing to do. But delivering for our country must come first, and no man is bigger than our party. Mr Lowe replied, saying, Lee, what you have said is simply not true. There's no credible evidence to say I have not cooperated. It's false. He added, launching this vindictive assault is quite frankly pathetic. Wow. Strong words, eh? Let's see what our political commentator and Reform UK member Tim Scott says about this one. Tim, good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining me. It's afternoon already, blimey. Tim,
yes, it is. Yes, it's literally just afternoon, Dawn, isn't it? And
Thank you.
I'm not sure what's happened to March either.
No, me neither.
Do I qualify for suffragette covers?
Ish. I'll make an exception for you because you've got a tough time on your hands at the moment. You're a member of Reform. I mean, this fallout is a massive own go for the party. They're topping all the polls at the moment.
Well, yes, Dawn, great to be on. Thank you. I mean, I have a foot in the Reform camp and a foot in the Conservative camp. I go to the events of both. There's people I like in both parties. I was very involved in UKIP. I've been a long-term Farage and Richard Tice fan. I would say that I'm not, these days I'm straddling both parties and trying to see the best in both, and I'm not an insider as I was in UKIP. So a bit difficult to comment on some of these, specific allegations. But I mean, I think suffice to say, I think everybody, firstly, everybody deserves some credit here, I think. I mean, Rupert Lowe, very successful businessman, he's chaired a Premiership football club. He's been great in Parliament, really a very, very effective MP. It would be sad to lose him. But I think also, Richard Tice deserves great credit for keeping reform going. And so does not, Nigel coming back has really taken reform to the next level. I think this is unfortunate for reform, and I hope it can be resolved one way or the other very quickly.
So we heard earlier on that no man is bigger than the party. That doesn't appear to be true, though, does it? I mean, it does appear that Nigel Farage is indeed not only bigger than party, but is the party. Well,
Nigel is the boss. And, I remember back in my UKIP days, it was very much Nigel is the boss. And, I think reform is very fortunate to have a big, charismatic, well-known speaker. He's and leader. He's a man of action. I mean, he's very well known. He's certainly better known than Kemi Badenoch and Ed Davey. But if you're going to be in Nigel's party, I think, you have to acknowledge that Nigel is very much the boss. He leads his party. I know him a little bit. We were both at the CPAC conference in Washington. Him as a speaker, me as a humble delegate. We had a drink together. So I'm very grateful to Nigel. We would never have had the Brexit referendum without him, for example. But there is that factor that he is a strong, very capable leader, and he does lead his party, and he is very much the boss.
There's being the leader of the party. I mean, but both Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib before him said Farage's strong point is not actually having policies. And out of the 30 people in Westminster, they've only got one person working on the actual policies for reform. So is this just ego that's gone wrong here, or is it about policy? I mean, the timing of all this, to be honest with you, stinks to high heaven, doesn't it?
Well, it is unfortunate, particularly because you've got local council elections coming up for those councils that haven't cancelled their elections, partly because I suspect they don't want to face reform. And nominations close the first week of April. So, there's not a lot of time left for people to come along and get their nominations in. I mean, I hope Reform do put up a strong slate of candidates. I'm expecting them to win some seats. I mean, Rupert, to be fair, he has said, please don't leave the party over this. And I, if anyone's watching and, they're thinking of just chucking their toys out the pram or whatever the phrase is, I think Reform is well worth staying with. And I noticed your poll on the earlier show, I think, with Anne Diamond and Stephen Dixon, that by 3-1, your polls said that they didn't think this would adversely, that this row, and it is a row, let's be honest, that this row would adversely affect Reform long term.
So if the party could only keep one of these two men briefly, Tim, and finally, which one should they keep? Should it be Nigel Farage or should it be Rupert Lowe?
Well, it has to be Nigel, Dawn. I mean, he is the man who has led them after Richard Tice's fantastic job of keeping the party going. Nigel has really taken Reform into the 20s, often leading in the opinion polls. And, we do need reform, much as I hope the Conservatives will sort of sort themselves out. I personally think they should have chosen Jenrick, but there you go. And I think we do need reform to give the two establishment parties that have so let our country down a good run for their money.
OK, brilliant. That's Tim Scott, their political commentator and Reform UK member. Thank you very much, Tim. OK, well, let's see what my panel can make of this one. One of them's just been sitting there shaking his head the whole time through that in the corner of my eye. It was so dramatic, I couldn't avoid it. That'd be you, Andy Williams, sitting there shaking your head. You must have a neck ache by now. So what were you shaking your head about?
Well, look, I mean, I'm on the record as saying Reform's a joke political party. I don't think it's serious. They've only got 5 MPs. Well, now they have 4. And 25% of the parliamentary party's been in prison for domestic violence. It's the Nigel Farage party, let's be clear. Tim Scott just said it there. It's all about Farage. Nobody's voting for Richard Tice. Nobody's voting for Lee Anderson. These are not serious people, this is not a serious party. It's a protest party. It's a protest vote. And then people have been...
Some would say Labour won the election on a protest vote against the Conservatives.
They won 418 seats. It was an almost a record majority.
Yeah, but how many people turned out and voted? I'm not saying, I'm just pointing out that it was a protest vote. It wasn't voting for Labour. It was voting against the Conservatives.
I don't think we know that. But look, Reform it's an embarrassing collection of small men. There are no women involved, by the way, at all in the party at any level. Mayor of Lincolnshire, is it? I mean,
she's
whatever.
A female.
She is, and I actually quite like Andrew. I think she's much more sensible than the rest of them. But it's the Nigel Farage party, and you can't get away from it. And if he left tomorrow, all of the people who are supporting Reform, do you think they'd stay with Reform, or do you think they'd follow Nigel? They'd follow Nigel.
Tim did imply that would be the case. Ricky, what do you make of it?
Well, I just find it incredible they have a parliamentary party there of, well, 5, now 4.
Now 4.
Which just seems to have descended into some sort of civil war. I think that's quite remarkable, really. And it's a shame from a Reform perspective because they were performing quite impressively in recent polls. But I totally agree with Andy that this is a one-man party. It's a one-man show. And I think that was what I think Rupert Lowe was trying to get at with these comments, that you need to have a solid team and you need to have strong policy ideas, and we're not seeing any of that, never mind from Reform, but from the British political right in general. So I think that what it really shows is that they're trying to make this effort to professionalise the party. And I'm talking about Nigel Farage and also Zia Youssef, the party chairman. But this is bad press for the party. There's no two ways about it. And I think that the one thing you want to see from a party which is riding as high as that in the polls is that they're able to maintain some form of party stability and cohesion. And this episode does very little on those fronts.
And there's a pattern. There is a pattern of Nigel Farage throughout his whole political career falling out with people. He always falls out with people. And when people... I mean, I've been on with Ben Habib many times, and we don't agree, but I think Ben is a smart guy. And they've fallen out dramatically, and now he's fallen out with Rupert Lowe. When Nigel Farage feels threatened or challenged, he doesn't like it. We don't know about the substance of these allegations, so we can't comment on that, but interesting.
But then what do you make of the timing? Because, I mean, this allegation of a physical altercation happened in December. Rupert Lowe gave an interview to the Daily Mail on Thursday, and then suddenly on Friday... to Andrew Pearce. And then suddenly on Friday, all these allegations come out and he's suspended from the party. What do you make of the timing? Suspicious?
Odd, isn't it?
It's suspect, to say the least. And I think that if this supposed incident happened around sort of Christmas time, it's very unusual that the timing of it is now, just after Rupert Lowe has provided an interview where... I don't think he was deeply critical of Nigel, by the way. I think he was trying to make...
mildly critical.
Mildly critical. You call it constructive criticism. He ultimately talked about the idea that if you want to be a truly successful political party, it just can't be about one person. 100%. You need to have a team banding round one another, and also having a coherent programmatic identity for how you're actually going to govern the country. And I think at the moment, Reform, their ideas look very disjointed, if they have any ideas at all. And this episode very much comes across as it being a party which there's a certain lack of professionalism there. And I think, as Andy's mentioned, it makes Farage look slightly insecure, in my view, that the idea that at the moment he's slightly challenged, he feels that his authority is fundamentally threatened, and this is the kind of end result of that.
OK,
He's a small man with ego, and that's all he is.
I'm making no comments about the stature of men, to be honest with you. On International Women's Day, it's all peace and love here with me, by the way. Thank you very much. We'll move on. But we are coming back to that subject. I know a lot of you want to have your opinion on it, gbnews.com/your say. And a lot of you are very angry about the situation as well. What's happening? OK, now, let's move on quickly. Russian strikes on Ukraine's Donetsk region kill at least 20 people. Speaking last night, President Trump claimed Russia's bombing blitz of Ukraine is what anybody else would do. Is he continuing to side with President Putin as he pushes for peace? Joining me now is US and international politics at University College Dublin Clinton Institute. Scott Lucas, thank you very much. Scott, I had a complete... I love talking to you so much because you always sit on the fence. Said nobody ever. Scott, what do you make about this? I mean, is Trump really meaning everything he says at the moment, or do you think he's just playing word games?
I guess the best way, Dawn, to do this is to walk it through and get it to what actually happens, right, in terms of this. So take, for example, that early on Friday, Donald Trump puts out this tweet which says, I might take measures against Russia to get them to negotiate as well as Ukraine. Maybe I'll put sanctions on them and put tariffs on them. But then a few hours later, he appears before reporters, and you gave this extraordinary quote there, which when he's asked about Russia bombing and attacking Ukraine civilians with missiles and drones, he says, I actually think Vladimir Putin is doing what anyone else would do. But then he doesn't stop there. He actually blames Ukraine for the Russian attacks. He says, I have to know that Ukraine wants to settle. I don't know they want to settle. If they won't settle, we're out of here. And then he goes back and says, I think Vladimir Putin, I think he's good. I think he's a good guy. I think he wants peace, right? So he goes all in with Putin. And then let me match it up to what has happened over the past few days. And this assess, where is the Trump administration, or at least most of them? On Monday, they suspend military aid to Ukraine, including aid that was on its way there that had been authorized by the Biden administration. Later in the week, they cut off intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Now that means Ukraine can't hit Russian targets as easily, but importantly, it means that Ukraine's early warning system against those missiles and drones is now crippled. Then they cut off satellite imagery, which is used by Ukrainian soldiers on the front lines, and that's gone. Meanwhile, there's a command which goes out from the Defense Secretary to U.S. Cyber Command, which says suspend measures against Russia's cyber operations. And then last, at least for now, officials are ordered to start drawing up a list of sanctions that can be eased on Russia. So in terms of what they're doing in substance, beyond Trump's statements, you really have to treat the Trump administration as enabling the Russian attacks on Ukraine, even as they might declare peace.
OK, what about the sanctions thing, though? Do you think that that sort of like at least goes some way to counterbalancing what he's saying about Ukraine?
What I think happened is that there are a couple of people within the Trump administration who are not happy with that swing towards Russia. And I'd say probably Donald Trump's envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, who continues to talk to the Ukrainians. I think it might include the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. And they have taken the line publicly, look, you can't just put pressure on one side. And I think Trump was reflecting that for a moment in that tweet. But then you got the real Trump when he spoke to reporters. And the real Trump at the end of the day, he likes Putin. He doesn't like Vladimir Zelensky. And you have to remember that with Trump, politics isn't about security. It's not necessarily about Ukraine security, Europe security, even UK security. It's about what he feels personally.
Do you think he would choose, finally and quickly, Scott, do you think he would choose Russia over Europe and the UK?
He already has, and I have to explain why. When Donald Trump chooses to have talks with Russia, he might say it's for peace, but those talks are on Russia's terms. And let's be clear what those terms are. Russia gets to keep about 25% of Ukraine. Russia gets the sanctions lifted on it, and Ukraine can no longer work with other countries like the UK. It's continued neutral and weak. But more important than that, and then I'll go, Don, it's not just Trump. J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, said a few weeks ago at the Munich Security Conference, and this is the line, we don't believe that we need to be with Europe. Europe needs to look after its own security. Now, Europe does need to look after its own security, but what they're effectively saying is that U.S. alliance with Europe, that's not the way they're thinking about it.
Oh, thank you. You always cheer me up there, Scott. Thank you very much. That's Scott Lucas, US and International Politics at the University College Dublin. Thank you very much, Scott, for joining us. Now, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Can the UK really, we've just been talking about him, can we really trust Putin to find peace, though? It's as 3 Bulgarians are convicted of leading one of the largest pieces of Russian espionage on British soil. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News. I'm Dawn Neeson, and Britain's News Channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Good morning. Are you all right?
I am all right. All the better for seeing you, my friend.
John, you've been through so much. We've just heard there about you losing your wife and losing your daughter. I'm so sorry to hear about both of those things. And despite all of that and everything you've been through, you continue to just give back. How can you do that? Just take something so negative and turn it into something so positive?
Well, Sheffield is the finest city in England. That's what I think about the Sheffield people and everybody. 250,000 I set out. I beat that. I got that. Just what's got in bucket. So I thought, well, set goalposts a bit, are you? So we were for 500. And we got that. And I thought, well, why not go say for $1 million? And we got $1 million. This is what I think about my people of Sheffield. It's just entitled my city. Sheffield, my city, that will always be home to me, no matter where I go or whatever sights I will see. Whenever I return, church bells will peal as I come home to the city of steel. A cathedral, cinemas, museums, Sheffield has such beautiful places. Home to a host of people of so many races, living and working in perfect harmony. That's why Sheffield is the greatest place to be. Singing the praises of Sheffield, Sheffield, my Sheffield, as I go forth. For now we are the sporting city of the north. Wonderful people, so happy, so helpful, so kind. Sheffield, no better place you will find.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back. Now, big question, looking at the front page of all your newspapers, you might be asking yourself the same question. Can the UK trust Vladimir Putin? As Sir Keir Starmer gears up to Ukraine peace talks with Russia, 3 Bulgarians have been convicted of carrying out one of the largest acts of Russian espionage seen on British soil. It's on every single one of your newspapers this morning, even the Daily Star have covered this one. And it's very James Bond. There's sex and drugs and literally rock and roll going on with this lot. Joining me now is former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major General Chip Chapman. Chip, lovely to see you. Thank you for... Now, at the front page of every single newspaper, this espionage story, it really is like something out of James Bond. But how much of this is going on?
Well, you only have to look at the Intelligence Security Committee reports of the last 2 or 3 years to tell you that it's pretty endemic. And that is that foreign intelligence services continue to conduct espionage to obtain UK defence and wider government secrets. And more than that, they continue to exert covert and malign influence on UK policy, democracy and public opinion by attempts to influence social media, journalism and political figures. So it goes on all the time. It's exacerbated in the cyber domain. So we know, for example, that there are a number of advanced persistent threats. A Chinese threat, for example, and a thing called APT-31 was unmasked earlier this year. That's why the sort of rescinding of the Cybercom looking at Russia is a pretty disastrous, really, from a Western perspective. So it's endemic. It goes on both sides. And it also involves, of course, people trying to be compromised. And compromise happens for really a number of reasons, either through revenge, ideology, money or ego. And that's why there's always uncertainty, for example, in America, about whether certain senior figures have been compromised. I don't think I've seen any evidence of that. But money and ego are 2 things that you can see are the prevalent factors in a compromised situation.
And has this got worse since the war in Ukraine started, or is it just ramping up in any case?
I think it has got worse because Russia sees this as a civilizational struggle, and that it sees Russia as a civilization apart, and that it doesn't see that it wants any infecting of Western ideals and Western democracy into Russia, and more widely into what it perceives to be its sphere of influence. And that's why, for example, this week we've had Peskov, the spokesman for Putin, saying that military operations will continue until all objectives are achieved. And we've had Putin on the 6th of March rejecting any concessions in negotiation and the possibility of a negotiated ceasefire. So bizarrely, it was Stalin who said about people trust them but check. Now, Trump seems to trust Putin, and he seems to think that he's someone he can work with. We'll have to see if that is the case. But in terms of international relations, and we often look at game theory in international relations, which is the strategic interactions to understand the dynamics of negotiation, deterrence, and cooperation. In terms of this being a bargaining game for the future, the payoff matrix, as they call it, looks to be in Russia's favor, not in the favor of Ukraine. That said, I do think that Trump does come from the perspective of a humanitarian peace. That is, he looks at this not in terms of winning or losing, but stopping the killing. And that's very honorable in a human security need. The problem with it is it rewards the aggressor.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Chip. As always, that's Major General Chip Chapman on the spy story and can we trust Putin? Rakib, coming to you first on this one. Well, we're out of time, unfortunately. It's a bit tight. But,
no worries.
I mean, this is on the front page of every single newspaper this morning. What's your take on it?
Well, they're saying that this is the largest, most significant case of Russian espionage on British soil. So, that tells you that how serious this particular event is. And I think that what it also shows is something that I talked about, Andy, earlier. It shows that Russian orbit is a bit broader than people think. I believe there was 3 Bulgarian citizens involved. So it shows that the tentacles of the Kremlin, you could say, they're quite wide-reaching.
Well, anyone could be a spy then, couldn't they, Andy?
I suppose they could be. Look, I think we've heard from 2 people there who I completely agree with. Donald Trump is not just a Kremlin apologist. He's an active supporter of Putin. He is pro-Putin.
You're almost lumping in with the spies.
Well, I think he's borderline a Russian agent. In terms of in terms of the way he is behaving, he has put himself firmly and squarely on the side of Putin. I think that Trump has a strongman view of international relations. He's pro-North Korea. He's kind of weirdly pro-China. He's got this strange kind of love-hate relationship with Xi Jinping. He favours Russia over Ukraine because he sees Russia as strong and Ukraine as weak, and that's his view of the world.
What do you make of that?
It's all about power dynamics for him at the end of the day. And he's gone with some strong words there for Trump. One thing you definitely we can agree on is that Trump is the most Putin-friendly political leader in the Western world. There's no getting away from that.
Does it matter, gentlemen, very, very quickly, if it stops the bloodshed?
At what cost? We don't know yet. Let's say the war ends tomorrow. Ukraine loses 25% of its territory. What if, as happened last time with Crimea, Putin comes back again in 5 years?
And I think that's the point, Dawn. If we believe in the democratic nation state and we believe in national sovereignty, is it really right that we could ever support a deal which would require Ukraine to make major territorial concessions?
Could be asked. Which part of the UK would you give up? I'm joking, obviously. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. It's absolutely packed. You really don't want to move too far from your tellies at all. But let's quickly go back to Westminster briefly now. Emergency services have been called to Big Ben. Yes, I know it's the bell, don't at me. Where a man draped in the Palestinian flag has scoured one of the buildings. Now, here is the news with Lewis Mackenzie with an update on this story as well.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 12:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. Let's go back to that breaking news story. A man has climbed Big Ben draped in a Palestinian flag. At least 9 emergency service vehicles are at Bridge Street at Parliament, with crowds onlooking from beyond police cordons. Westminster Bridge has been closed down and tours at the parliamentary estates have been cancelled for the rest of the day. A Met Police spokesperson says officers are at the scene working to bring the incident to a safe conclusion. They are being assisted by the London Fire Brigade and London Ambulance Services. It's reported that the incident started at around 8 a.m. this morning. We'll, of course, bring you the very latest as we have it here on GB News. Now, at least 12 people have been injured during a shooting at a pub in Toronto. 4 victims have non-life-threatening injuries, but the others' conditions are yet unknown. Toronto police say the suspect was wearing a black balaclava and was seen fleeing in a silver car and is still at large. The Reform MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from the party amid allegations he made physical threats against the party chairman Zia Youssef. Mr Youssef confirmed the party had also received complaints from 2 female employees about serious bullying in Mr Lowe's parliamentary and constituency offices. In a statement, Mr Lowe said he was disappointed but not surprised to learn of what he said were false allegations. He also says that the allegations of bullying at his offices are not about him, and he's taking legal advice. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Corton Beach is not a naturist beach. Lewd behaviour will not be tolerated and may be recorded by CCTV and reported to the police.
It says causing offence to others is a criminal offence and all cases will be reported for prosecution. And a spokesman then says we're not targeting or trying to outlaw the naturist. The parish council recognises that naturism in the UK is legal.
So what are they doing then?
Well, let's talk to the organiser to find out. The British Naturism Eastern Regional, Nigel Newman. Joins us now. Morning, Nigel. Sorry, I think it's the first time I've interviewed somebody without their top on. But, you know... Right, Nigel, what's going on down there? Because I think we pretty much support your right to be able to, you know, swing free on a nice warm day.
Well, the thing is, Corton Beach in Suffolk is very, very popular and has been since the 1970s for naturists. And one of the reasons for that is right next to a car park with a cafe with toilets. And there's, and this is a bit important, there's a ramp that goes right down to the top of the beach, which is ideal for disabled naturists. And that's one of the reasons that it's so well attended over the years. And what's happened is back in December, this sign appeared, great big yellow sign with black writing saying, warning, as you read out, Corton Beach is not a naturist beach. Well, that's not accurate because every beach is a naturist beach. Naturism is not unlawful. And the sign then goes on to suggest, because it's in the very next sentence, that lewd behaviour will not be tolerated. Well, British naturism totally agree with that statement. Lewd behaviour should not be tolerated. Yeah. But lewd behaviour and naturism are 2 completely different things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for your company on this Saturday afternoon. Are you popping out on the motor anytime soon? Well, this story will interest you. The car finance mis-selling scandal just got even bigger. Fresh evidence suggests lenders may have hidden billions in secret commissions, meaning UK drivers could be owed up to £90 billion. Investigators claim this is one of the worst consumer rip-offs ever. And there's a long list of competition here, isn't there? I'm joined now by Chief Investigator and Director at Sentinel Legal, Sam Ward. Sam, this story on the surface seems quite complicated. Can you just tell us in baby step what has actually gone on here?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the general public go into a car dealership, they expect the car salesperson to be earning their commission from selling you the actual vehicle and not selling you the finance product, which in actual fact, after our investigations, we found that in a number of occasions, especially with big banks such as Lloyd, who own Black Horse, and Santander, who are two of the biggest car finance providers in the market at the moment, they've actually been allowing dealerships to sell cars at sometimes a loss in order to benefit from the huge inflated commissions that came from selling the finance itself.
That doesn't sound fair at all in any way, shape or form. So, I mean, how many people have been affected by this?
Well, the FCA came out last year and said of the 31.7 million finance agreements that they're aware of that could be affected from 2007 to 2021, 99% of them are affected. Wow. So chances are if you've paid monthly for a vehicle since 2007, there's probably a very good chance you're owed some form of compensation.
Obviously, and the next question here is, what can you do about it? If you're sitting here listening or watching to this now and thinking, oh, well, hold on a minute, that could be me. I mean, how do you check and what do you do?
Well, consumers are in a strong place at the minute, Dawn. The Court of Appeal came out in October, 25th of October last year, and unanimously decided with consumers, with the great British public, and said that you have been done wrong and the banks need to start making provisions to ultimately pay some form of compensation. Now, as you can imagine, the banks didn't like that and they've escalated that to the Supreme Court. That gets heard 1st, 2nd and 3rd of April this year, and we're hoping the Supreme Court hands down that judgment before summer to give everyone who could be affected some clear advice on what they need to do and ultimately how much they could be owed in compensation.
And what sort of figures are we looking at for an individual person here?
Well, from an individual person, it's really hard to say because it goes off the basis of how much your car value was, how many cars you've had. You know, we're seeing at Sentinel Legal that the average consumer's got about 2 to 2.5 car finance agreements that they can claim on. But I'll give you a really bad example, Dawn. We've got one client who had a brand new Land Rover, went into his local Land Rover dealership. The finance that particular gentleman took out was £81,000. So it's probably at the higher end of what most people would see, but still a very common car in some places of the country. Of that £81,000, £16,049 was paid as commission on. And just to really break that down for you, of the entire commission, about 19% of the overall finance was paid as a commission, but of the interest that particular gentleman paid on his agreement, 61% of the interest paid was paid as a commission. So it really, really is a scandal, to quote it.
That's astonishing. You don't hear much about it. But basically, we're telling people now, but you've got to wait to see what happens with this judgment and then maybe approach, you know, someone like yourselves to get advice.
Well, you don't have to wait at the minute, Dawn. You can still make a claim, or you can still get your complaint going. You can, use someone like Sentinel Legal, or you can write to your lender yourself.
Right.
You can just send a complaint to the complaints email on their website. But in April, the Supreme Court will have 3 days to make their mind up. They will hear from the claimants that have already won in the Court of Appeal. They will hear from the banks, and then hopefully sometime before the summer recess of the Supreme Court, they will hand down that decision and let people know what they can exactly do about it.
It's incredible it's been going on for so long. And just reassure us, it's not still going on in any way, shape or form, is it, Sam?
Well, the FCA came out in 2021, in March 2021, and they banned what is called a discretionary commission element. And what that basically did, Dawn, was the banks, so say Santander, they would lend their car finance at 9%. They would allow the dealer to push it up to 10, 12, upwards of 15%, and they would be able to keep a percentage of that difference. Sometimes they were allowed to keep 100% of the difference. So that was banned by the FCA. Now, the Court of Appeal have actually made the non-disclosure of commissions illegal and said it was unfair. And to quote them, they actually said it was acting with greed and in their self-interest. So you've got this fixed commission element now, which is what we're talking about. And that's where you're seeing the very, very big commissions. And that's what the Supreme Court will be deciding on.
Wow, OK. Sam, so, you know, advice for anyone now thinking about going out and buying a car on, you know, using a finance system, what's the advice you would give them?
Well, since the Court of Appeal decision, lenders now by law have to disclose. They have to have what's called informed consent, Dawn. And that means that if you are sitting down buying a car, the car dealership has to tell you how much commission they're earning, who the commission is coming from, and how they've calculated that commission. And they have to give you that, and you have to sign for that and say that you've had it before you take out any finance. So, and that, the shocking part about this is, Dawn, that this has been going on since 2007. Yeah. Post the Court of Appeal, it took lenders 5 days to completely rewrite all of their documents. So if they could do it in 5 days, why did they not do it for all of these years? And my personal opinion, Dawn, is that they wanted it to happen because this was part of their business model, and this is how they made money, by ripping off the great British public.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of that around, isn't there? That's Sam Ward, Chief Investigator and Director at Sentinel Legal. Thank you very much, Sam. And if you want more information on that, please do go to our GB News website, where we'll put the details of what you can do and how not to get caught out. OK, now, if you want some good news, we all do, don't we? And you're heading off somewhere lovely, maybe some winter sun, here is what the weather you can expect is going to be like for you for top European holiday destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're curious about what the weather's doing further afield, well, across the Mediterranean, there's a lot of unsettled weather at the moment, especially Iberia into the south of France. But for Greece, mostly fine, sunny spells, still a bit of a breeze for the Greek islands. Italy, towards the south, yes, plenty of settled weather, but towards the north and northwest, as well as the south of France, unsettled, but not as unsettled as Portugal, Spain, Gibraltar, Madeira, where heavy showers and strong winds will be continuing through the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Plenty of hazy sunshine across the UK today. There will be a few showers around, particularly across the far southwest and the far north, but feeling warm for the time of year. Winds coming in from the southwest, drawing in warm air from the near continent. You can see that with the yellows on the map there. Across the whole of the UK, temperatures well above average. Plenty of hazy sunshine across much of the UK, though cloudier skies for parts of Northern Ireland, fringes of Wales and the West Country, where a few showers are possible. Some further spells of rain pushing from Orkney into Shetland through the day as well. But most places dry in that sunshine, temperatures well above average, 16, 17, 18, possibly even 19 Celsius across North Wales into northwest England. So temperatures this time of year should be around 7 to 11 Celsius. Into the evening time, further showers across the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, but most places will be dry. 1 or 2 heavier bursts possible, but generally the rain will be light. Some hazy spells of sunshine ahead of dusk across Northern Ireland as the sun sets here. Plenty of dry weather for much of England and Wales, though still 1 or 2 showers possible in the west from some medium level cloud. Not too much to spoil things. And then a dry evening to come for most. Overnight it stays dry with clear spells and still some further patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. And it remains breezy across southwest England. Elsewhere winds will be light. We could see some mist and fog patches forming, particularly across central southern parts of Scotland, northern England, and here temperatures dropping to around 4 or 5 Celsius. But a sunny start for many. Mist and fog across parts of Scotland, northern England, slowly burning back to the coast through the day. And for most, it's a dry day. Plenty of sunshine. Breezy across the southwest still, but sunnier here compared to Saturday. And rain just still affecting the far north of Scotland. Temperatures again well above average, reaching close to 20 Celsius by the afternoon. See you again soon.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel. I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for your company. So it's the weekend. That means we're going to talk about some sport. It's the Six Nations clash we've all been waiting for. Ireland and France go head-to-head in Dublin in a battle that could decide the championship. I've got no idea what I'm talking about, to be honest with you. Can Ireland edge closer to a historic Grand Slam, or will France spoil the party? No idea. Wrong-shaped balls for me. But, Aidan, you can talk about this one. What's happening?
Well, look, Ireland stand on the brink of something quite historic. I mean, not only can they win the Grand Slam, which means that they win all 5 games at the Six Nations, and they're 2 games away from that. Obviously, France are going there today. France and Ireland are the 2 top sides in the Northern Hemisphere. They tend to flatter to deceive both of them at World Cups. But as of today, I'd still say that France are well capable of winning that game. But Ireland could, if they win today, they've basically sewn up a 3rd successive Six Nations in a row, and that's something really to behold, because on the face of it, you wouldn't look at Ireland and say in the great sporting arena of the British Isles that they would be necessarily on top. But in rugby, they've had this wonderful generation of players who come through from a club side, Leinster, and they're really doing it in a club at international level. We're just waiting for them now to try and get past the quarterfinals at World Cup. So that's that. And then later on today, you've got Scotland against Wales. Wales looked far, far better against Ireland a couple of weeks ago. They have an interim manager in charge right now, but Scotland, very, very durable, hard to beat as well, and so they're vying for 3rd place. But if France do win today in Dublin, it opens the whole thing up. It means it goes on for another couple of weeks. It keeps it interesting, and it opens the door just slightly for England.
Yes, so where are England in all this?
Well, England, they lost against Ireland in the first game, but they've won twice since then, including that statement victory against France, although France missed some key chances or key opportunities to see the match home there. Ireland did against England, to be fair, but they're hanging in there, and they play Italy tomorrow at Twickenham, or the Allianz, as we call it now, at 3 o'clock, and they'll be right on. If Ireland slip up, they'll be right on standby to take advantage, press home there, or capitalise there, if they can.
So it's not all over?
Not all over, It just depends what happens today.
Yeah.
But Ireland v France, as I suspected, that will be the pivotal match, but it's also the best match as well. That's where the best rugby will be played, I'm absolutely certain of that.
OK, right, not all over, unlike it is for some football teams we could mention. Not mentioning anyone who's a Southampton fan in the studio. What's going on with the round-shaped ball this afternoon?
Well, the main game is tomorrow. That will be Man United against Arsenal. There's some protests taking place, actually, at Old Trafford by a group called 1958. Now, they believe that their club is slowly dying. They're complaining at the ownership of the Glazers. Now, the Glazers are interesting because they sold the difficult part of the business to Ineos. Right, you take care of the football. That's where the aggro comes from. Never mind the debt. The aggro comes from what happens on the pitch. That's when he signed players and let them go. But he hasn't made changes on the pitch. Not many anyway. He gave a new manager a new contract and then promptly sacked him. And then since then he's been worrying about cutbacks in the offices, sellotape, paper clips, sacking staff. He saved £1 million. It's not even the wage of a junior player. Yes, it's very, very strange. And Amorim is saying, look, if you look at Arsenal, he's had 5 years, Arteta, to turn it round. I'm not going to get that time. Very defeatist for a Manchester United manager, given he's been in the job for 3 months.
And how's Peter doing on Stuart Pearce? Just quickly.
He's in hospital. He had a scare in the air for coming back from Vegas to the UK. The plane was diverted to Canada. We believe it was heart problems, but we'll get an update later today.
Aidan McGee, always a genius. Thank you very much for joining us with all that. I'm Dawn Neeson of GBNews, and there's more coming up. Don't want to move anywhere. There's been a security breach at the Houses of Parliament at the Palace of Westminster, where a man has scaled the Elizabeth Tower. Videos on social media show a barefoot man stood on a ledge holding a Palestinian flag. Well, why wouldn't you? But first, let's get the weather. See if it's...
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Plenty of hazy sunshine across the UK today. There will be a few showers around, particularly across the far southwest and the far north, but feeling warm for the time of year. Winds coming in from the southwest, drawing in warm air from the near continent. You can see that with the yellows on the map there. Across the whole of the UK, temperatures well above average. Plenty of hazy sunshine across much of the UK, though cloudier skies for parts of Northern Ireland, fringes of Wales and the West Country, where a few showers are possible. Some further spells of rain pushing from Orkney into Shetland through the day as well. But most places dry in that sunshine, temperatures well above average, 16, 17, 18, possibly even 19 Celsius across North Wales into northwest England. So temperatures this time of year should be around 7 to 11 Celsius. Into the evening time, further showers across the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, but most places will be dry. 1 or 2 heavier bursts possible, but generally the rain will be light. Some hazy spells of sunshine ahead of dusk across Northern Ireland as the sun sets here. Plenty of dry weather for much of England and Wales, though still 1 or 2 showers possible in the west from some medium level cloud. Not too much to spoil things. And then a dry evening to come for most. Overnight it stays dry with clear spells and still some further patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. And it remains breezy across southwest England. Elsewhere winds will be light. We could see some mist and fog patches forming, particularly across central southern parts of Scotland, northern England, and here temperatures dropping to around 4 or 5 Celsius. But a sunny start for many. Mist and fog across parts of Scotland, northern England, slowly burning back to the coast through the day, and for most it's a dry day, plenty of sunshine, breezy across the southwest still, but sunnier here compared to Saturday, and rain just still affecting the far north of Scotland. Temperatures again well above average, reaching close to 20 Celsius by the afternoon. See you again soon.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB.
We want to spruce up your spring with an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash that you can spend however you like. But that's not all, as you'll also receive not 1, but 2 brand new designer watches and a fabulous Mulberry handbag. For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of March, and this is the weekend on GB News. Your stories this hour. The reform scandal surrounding MP Rupert Lowe continues as the party on top of the polls is thrown into turmoil this morning after their chief whip, Lee Anderson, has come out saying they've got a monumental task on their hands. And Russia kills at least 14 as they continue to hit Ukraine with strikes. Now the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, is saying that all adult men in his country will be trained for war. Is Europe preparing for that unthinkable all-out war, and is Britain ready? And a developing story, this. Emergency services have been called to the Palace of Westminster, where a man has scaled one of the buildings. We will keep you up to date with the latest on that story. And who'll be crowned top dog? It's Crufts 2025, and it's taking place in Birmingham. Our reporter Jack Carson will be there with the latest.
Well, there are hundreds of thousands of people coming to Crufts over the next few days. Only one can be crowned top dog, and for some, the excitement's just got a little bit too much.
Oh, I know how that one feels. All of that to come, lots of cute dogs. Right, I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you for your company this Saturday lunchtime. We've got an absolutely jam-packed show for you. So you really don't want to move a muscle apart from maybe putting a cuppa on in the break, but not for now because it is jam-packed. And we're covering everything from cute dogs to people stuck up Big Ben. And don't at me, I know it's not Big Ben. I know what it's called properly. I know that's about da-da-da. Any case, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today or anything you want to have a chat about. Visiting gbnews.com/your say and join in our conversation. Keeping me company today is political commentator Andy Williams and social policy analyst Rakib Ahsan. Thank you very much for coming in, boys. Really appreciate it. But before we get stuck into today's stories, here is the latest news headlines with the wonderful Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 1 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. Breaking news for you now. A man has climbed Big Ben, draped in a Palestinian flag. At least 9 emergency service vehicles are at Bridge Street at Parliament, with crowds looking on from beyond a police cordon. Westminster Bridge has been closed down, and tours of the parliamentary estate have been cancelled for the rest of the day. A Met Police spokesperson says officers are at the scene working to bring the incident to a safe conclusion. They are being assisted by London Fire Brigade and London Ambulance Services. It's reported that the incident started at around 8 a.m. this morning. We'll bring you the very latest as we have it here on GB News. At least 12 people have been injured during a shooting at a pub in Toronto. 4 victims have non-life-threatening injuries, but the other conditions are yet unknown. Toronto police say the suspect was wearing a black balaclava and was seen fleeing in a silver car and is still at large. The Reform MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from the party amid allegations he made physical threats against the party chairman, Zia Youssef. Mr Youssef confirmed the party had also received complaints from 2 female employees about serious bullying in Mr Lowe's parliamentary and constituency offices. In a statement, Mr Lowe said he was disappointed but not surprised to learn of what he has said are false allegations. He also says that the allegations of bullying at his offices are not about him. He's currently taking legal advice. Now, some breaking news for you now. A migrant has died as more than 150 others attempted to cross the English Channel today. It marks the 8th day of small boat crossings. It takes the total number who have crossed since last Saturday to around 1,900 and has shattered all previous records for the number of migrant arrivals at this point in any year since the crisis began in 2016. Members of a Russian-run spy ring are facing a lengthy jail terms for one of what's being called the largest and most complex enemy operation to be uncovered on UK soil. The 3 Bulgarian nationals were found guilty at the Old Bailey of spying on an industrial scale and putting lives and national security at risk. Donald Trump says he's working hard to get a Ukraine peace deal as soon as possible. The president was speaking in the White House after another major wave of Russian attacks on its neighbour overnight. Mr. Trump said that the Ukraine was taking tremendous punishment and a peace deal is urgently needed.
Settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that. The prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them.
Today marks International Women's Day. The annual celebration aims to champion women's achievement across all aspects of life. Speaking at a visit to RAF Northolt, Chancellor Rachel Reeves met with women personnel in the armed forces.
Well, it's fantastic at RAF at Northolt to be able to meet with women personnel in our armed forces on our front line. International Women's Day is an opportunity to celebrate how far we've come, but also as a government, and for me personally, as the first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer, to redouble our efforts to ensure that we have opportunities for women, which is why we are going further and faster on childcare and breakfast clubs to help parents, but particularly women, balance work and family life.
Authorities in the United States have confirmed that Hollywood actor Gene Hackman died of natural causes a week after his wife Betsy died of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. It's been claimed that Hackman was not aware his wife had died because of his advanced Alzheimer's. Their bodies were found in their home in New Mexico last week, along with the body of their pet dog. And finally, 4 European brown bears at Whipsnade Zoo have woken up from hibernation. The bears, Mana, Minnie, Naya and of course Cinderella, have finally gotten out of bed after 3 months of deep slumber, signalling the start of spring at the UK's largest zoo. Well, those have been your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Lewis. I keep coming back to this. Why, obviously, as Lewis keeps saying, Cinderella. Why is the bear called Cinderella? Anyone? gbnews.com/say. It's the topic of the day, the burning topic of the day. The other burning topic of the day is what do you do with that person? Not many of you are calling him a person. Stuck up Big Ben at the moment. He's been there for hours and he's blocking the bridge over St Thomas's Hospital, blocking ambulances from getting through. Let me know what you think about that one. So I'm really annoyed about that one. Now, in any case, the main story over the last certainly 2 days, MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from Reform UK amid allegations he made physical threats against the party. Chairman Zia Youssef, their chief whip Lee Anderson, says they now have a monumental task on their hands, saying that he bears, quote, no malice towards Rupert and to remove the whip was a deeply painful thing to do. But delivering for our country must come first and no man is bigger than the party. Meanwhile, Mr Lowe replied, Lee, what you have said is simply not true. There's no credible evidence to say I have not cooperated. It's false. He added, launching this vindictive assault is quite frankly pathetic. Wow. Joining me now is one of the hardest men, I would say, on working men on GB News, reporter Adam Cherry. Adam, you're not stopped today, have you?
No, still here.
Fair play to you. So, what's happening today on the reform story? It's total meltdown, surely.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it play out in real time on X, aren't you? This back and forth. The real... You read the quotes, but the real winner out of all of this really is going to be the Labour Party. It's going to be Keir Starmer. Because whilst the Conservatives are still trying to get their house in order, they've got their own problems. Now reform, I mean, I wouldn't call it a total implosion, but it doesn't look great, does it? So the entire right of politics is now distracted by itself. And so Keir Starmer gets to go to Ukraine and try and be a statesman and reap all the rewards of that, whilst his opponents look like they don't know what on earth's going on.
Is there any movement today to sort of like try and, get together and move on from this?
Well, I mean, we did see Rupert Lowe offer a dinner invitation on X. Again, like I said, it's all playing out in real time on social media. It's all on social media. But he said on X, let's have a dinner, Nigel, you and I. He said he invited him several times before and been rebuffed or ignored. I mean, that's his words on that. We don't know if that's true either way, but that's where we are. A bit of a stalemate. It doesn't look like it's them cleaning this up anytime soon, actually. What should have happened, really, I suppose, is either one or the other says, OK, let's take this behind doors and behind closed doors and have a private discussion about this.
This is the thing, right? It's International Women's Day now. I'm surrounded by men on this panel. Thanks for that, bookers. Would this have happened, do you think, if it had been two women?
Oh, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, you're asking me, but
I'm just asking the questions here.
This is one for the panel, I reckon. This is interesting.
I'll weigh in on this. I do think it's relevant that there are basically no... You mentioned Andrea Jenkins earlier, but there are basically no women involved in reform. If you look behind the scenes, if you look at the team, they're all men. I do think there is something interesting
about the male ego, Rakib.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, I think the British female politicians don't struggle to argue with one another. I think you can see that almost every week in the House of Commons.
Yeah, but there's arguing in the House of Commons, having a debate. I mean, that's different to... This seems to be...
I don't think reform's problems are rooted in biological sex. I think it's just more generally the characters involved. And I think, namely, that there are egos up there at the top of the party.
That's the word.
Namely, Nigel Farage, who I think that, as I said previously, I think that there's even the mildest challenge to his authority, he just doesn't respond to it very well. Well, I think we've also had female politicians in the past who don't react very well to their authority being challenged.
Speaking of which, by the way, I saw that Liz Truss was having lunch or dinner with Rupert Lowe the other day.
So you did that.
Is she the Grim Reaper of British politics? Every time she meets someone, something terrible goes.
She's a bit of an omen, isn't she? Yeah, bless her. But well, look. Like I said, it's still ongoing, isn't it? I thought you would have thought after how badly things went, yesterday or Thursday evening, they would have said, right, we need to stop this and we need to get around the table. But actually, each comment seems to precipitate another disastrous response, and it's ongoing.
It's very bad for the party's image. They're looking to professionalise the party's image. This has done the exact opposite.
And let's not forget, of course, with the Tories as well. The whole half the reason they were shown the door in July, one of many, but one of them was it was the civil war, the constant infighting and bickering reflects very poorly on the country.
But on a serious note, we have got 4 years to go. I mean, there's a long way before the next election.
Yeah.
So, do you think this is going to be a storm in a teacup, or do you think they will work it out?
I mean, Rupert Lowe is now... He's an independent MP. He's had the whip withdrawn. There's only 5 of them. I mean...
20% of the party gone?
Yeah, there's such a huge spotlight on that.
Can he come back from this? I mean, it's been withdrawn, but I mean...
He can come back from in a personal capacity. Whether he can come back as a reformed politician, I think that's an entirely different question.
The longer this goes on, the worse. The longer this goes on, the more difficult it is for that to happen, I think.
Definitely. I think Adam made such a good point, which is that this has been the best 10 days for the Labour Party since they were elected.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer has had a really good fortnight. He looks like a statesman. He has convening power on the world stage. And actually, for all of the polling, the Tories are nowhere. Kemi Badenoch is a disaster. She's proving to be the disaster that I think anybody who knows anything about her knew she would be. And Reform, who have a golden opportunity to sort of step into that void on the right, now they're squabbling among themselves.
Adam's absolutely right. The big winner in all this is the Labour Party. And I think what it really shows that British political conservatism is in dire straits, in my view.
What can they do about it, though?
Well, I think with the Conservatives, we need to see... I mean, I think that Kemi Badenoch's start as leader has been underwhelming, but I don't think it's entirely her fault. I just think that the Conservative brand generally, after... The last parliamentary term was so utterly disastrous in so many ways. I think that it could be contaminated beyond repair, really, the Conservative brand. While Reform, it's a fledgling party. I think it was doing well in the polls, but I think efforts to professionalise the party, come across as a cohesive outfit, I think that they're encountering some very serious problems here with this particular episode.
Do you think it would be maybe now the impetus that both the Conservative Party and Reform need to work closer together, Akeem?
Well, the point is that you need to have cohesive organisations to begin with in order to be a successful partnership. If they're disunited internally, how successful could the partnership be?
Two disunited parties coming together to be...
within the parties, they need to agree, you know, the terms of that partnership, how it would actually work. I just don't see that.
I think one of the big problems, and this is one for you really, Ricky, but it feels like there's just a lack of thinking on the right. Like there's
a great intellectual deficit at the heart of British political conservatism, in my view. And I find that incredible because I think we have some very serious issues when it comes to things like immigration, economic management. And I think there's big questions to ask about national identity as well, which you think that the British Conservatives will really lean into those issues and make some positive contributions.
There's a gap,
I just don't see much of that at the moment.
OK, well, we'll be coming back to this story because, obviously, a lot of you want to get involved, and I will read as many of your messages out as I possibly can. But the other big story is Russian strikes on Ukraine's Donetsk region kill at least 14 people. Speaking last night, President Trump claimed Russia's bombing blitz of Ukraine is what anybody else would do. Is he continuing to side with President Putin as he pushes for peace there?
I want to settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that, the prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them.
OK, now Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk is launching a large-scale military training for every adult male. Is Europe gearing up for an all-out war, and is Britain ready? Joining us now is former NATO Commander Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Chris, thank you. Now, I completely understand that obviously Poland has a geographical issue they need to be more concerned about than we do at the moment, but every young male in Poland is now going to be given military training. What do you make of this?
Well, Dawn, I think you said, I mean, Poland's a country that's really only existed for less than 100 years. They've been marched over, invaded, and obviously abused from both directions, so they're very sensitive about defence. They're also the closest to the front line with Russia and what is going on in Ukraine. So, of course, they take their defence very seriously, and they think they need to mobilise their population to achieve that.
Do you think that will work, or do you think Trump will see that almost as a provocation?
Well, no, I mean, I think these arguments were made before the Second World War that, you know, you can't mobilise, you might actually provoke Hitler. But if you're dealing with an irreconcilable person who wants to invade and exploit your country, then you've got no choice but to up the ante. The fact of life is that if you're weak, people will take advantage of you. That's something the Israelis have learned over many years indeed. And the best way to deter people is show you're prepared for war at an instant. What we have failed to do in Western Europe in the last 70 years or so is show that we can actually fight without the Americans. There's no way we can fight without the Americans. My own view is most of our European partners have a motto of can't fight, won't fight. And they've showed no ability to upscale their forces at all, certainly since the beginning of my career.
Now, obviously, we've had endless discussions about GDP, and Starmer has said that we are going to increase it now to 2.5%. In your opinion, is that enough?
No, it's pathetic. It's a drop in the ocean. It'll barely cover inflation, to tell you the truth. And we shouldn't be talking about percentages of GDP. We should be talking about the capabilities we need to defend this country and also to promote its interests and support our allies. I'm afraid we've got politicians who are playing at soldiers at the moment. They really don't understand. The fact that the Prime Minister thinks he's going to put so-called peacekeeping troops into Ukraine is for the birds as well. If you are not prepared to fight, you're not going to be able to deter anybody, and the Russians know that. And let me tell you, if you put a peacekeeping force of 20 or 30,000 people into Ukraine, and frankly, you need about 200,000 if you're going to do it properly, then you're going to have to relieve them in 6 months' time. And guess what? We don't have those people. So I'm afraid there's a lot of posturing going on at the moment, a lot of positioning, and I'm afraid the Labour Party needs to think very, very carefully about what it commits this country to over the next few months.
Chris, finally and very quickly, what do you think they should do then? I mean, should we start training more young people? I mean, national service? Is this what we're talking about here?
No, I think we've got to have a good look at what strategy we want over the long term, what place we want to have in the world. You know, I sat next to Mrs. Thatcher after the Falklands War, and I said to her, you know, what did you learn from that war? And she said, what I learned was I have to tell the military people what political outcomes I want. I mustn't interfere with what they do. And then they deliver those political outcomes, not just military victory in the field. I'm afraid there's a lack of sophistication, a lack of statesmanship. And to be perfectly honest, Dawn, we've got politicians who don't know how to threaten or use force.
Interesting. Thank you very much. That's NATO Commander Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, Chris. Whew, OK, strong words there. Let's see what one panel make of this one. Let's come to you first on this one, Andy. Strong words there, indeed. We're not ready. We need to do much more. We're in a dangerous situation.
We're not ready, and I don't think Europe is ready. We need to have an honest conversation about the huge amount of money we're going to have to spend on defence indefinitely to get us to a stage where we're ready to defend ourselves, because the world has changed and America will not come to America are not on our side anymore. And we need to be honest about the fact that they might not be an enemy, but they're not really an ally anymore. Donald Trump has said it explicitly, America first. It is about America and America only. They will not come to our aid. So we, Europe, and European nations have to be ready. And I think Keir Starmer has made some really good first steps over the last 10 days by convening European leaders, setting out a pathway forward, making it clear that we're on the side of Zelensky and on the side of Ukraine. But what we need is a huge investment in our defence capabilities, and the money is going to have to come from somewhere. I don't know where.
This is the $64,000 question, quite literally. Where is the money coming from? If we need to increase defence spending, if we need to increase the size of our forces, where's that money coming from?
Well, there has to be a reconfiguration of spending priorities within the UK and much of Europe as well. I think there's a great deal of spending on welfare, so there are going to have to be very serious questions to be asked in terms of the size of the welfare state, how it actually works. I certainly agree that European countries, including the UK, they have to invest more in their defence. There's no two ways about that. And that's largely because the United States, with President Trump, is unpredictable. I think that reliability that may have existed before is no longer present. But I think Europe has to take more responsibility for its own security and defence. I think the interesting thing about the Leaders' Summit was not so much who was there, but who wasn't there. For example, Hungary and Slovakia had no representatives. Yeah. And I think in a political sense, they're more Kremlin-friendly, but they're both members of NATO, I believe. So I think the idea of this sort of European military and defence cohesion, it might be quite difficult to achieve that. I think it was also a shame that we're not looking outside of Europe. We do have reliable security partners, such as Australia and Japan, for example, who are members of Quad.
Canada were there, obviously.
Canada was there.
Yeah.
So I think that if you wanted to sort of build this international coalition, I think we need to see more sophisticated statecraft, and we have to look beyond Europe.
OK, thank you very much. We'll be coming back to this story as well. What do you think out there at gbnews.com/your say? Poland training every adult male for war. Do you think it's something we should consider here? More importantly, do you think the young men in this country would be willing to fight? I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's incredibly packed show. There's been Following a security breach of the Houses of Parliament, emergency services are at the Palace of Westminster as a barefoot man is stood on a ledge holding a Palestinian flag several metres up of Big Ben. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to a friend of mine, friend of the programme now, and that is Katie Nicholl. Katie is the royal correspondent at Vanity Fair, and she has got a tale to tell. And this tale began, well, here we are on Valentine's Day, Katie, and this was 2 years ago, and this was a horror story we're talking about.
Yeah, it was a bit of a horror story. It wasn't the Valentine's I'd wanted or expected. I got a call from the Royal Free. I'd been in for an MRI earlier on in the January and for my liver. And I got a call saying that I had cholangiocarcinoma, which I had no idea what it was.
I have no idea what it is.
I know. Well, Dora, who is my surgeon, who...
Now, this is your surgeon. It's very important, lady, and this is Dr. Dora. And you really did do the explorer bit. You had to go in there and cut out this cancer.
Yeah, correct.
But tell us what sort of cancer this is.
So this is a primary liver cancer that arises from the bile duct of the liver. So it's not a metastatic coming from elsewhere, it's a primary. It doesn't arise from the hepatocyte itself. I mean, imagine that the liver is like a red thing, and inside it growing something like a green tree with a lot of branches. So within those branches, we have the epithelial cells, the bile duct cells, and this is where this cancer comes from.
I felt that I was possibly perimenopausal. I was getting these heart palpitations. I was getting really, really bad sense of indigestion, but nothing that was making me overly concerned. But I was with a girlfriend and she just said, "Are you all right?" And I burst into tears. I said, "You know, I just don't feel myself." And she said, "Just go see your GP." And I did.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company this Saturday lunchtime. I hope you're having a lovely weekend out there. Now, today is International Women's Day. It's also my late mother-in-law's birthday, so happy heavenly birthday. An annual commemoration. This is aiming to celebrate women's achievements across all aspects of life. Speaking at a visit to RAF Northolt on Thursday, Chancellor Rachel Reeves met with women personnel in the armed forces.
Well, it's fantastic at RAF at Northolt to be able to meet with women personnel in our armed forces on our front line. International Women's Day is an opportunity to celebrate how far we've come, but also as a government, and for me personally, as the first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer, to redouble our efforts to ensure that we have opportunities for women, which is why we are going further and faster on childcare and breakfast clubs to help parents, but particularly women, balance work and family life.
OK. Now, every year, as part of marking the day, Labour Minister Jess Phillips reads out all the women who have been killed by men in the previous year. And this, as we had the horrific story this week as triple killer Carl Clifford was convicted for raping his ex-girlfriend Louise Hunt before carrying out the horrific murders of Louise, her sister Hannah and her mum Carol. It was revealed Clifford watched Andrew Tate videos and was fuelled by misogyny. So we're asking on International Women's Day, do men need proper role models? What is going wrong with our young men? We have International Women's Day, we are lifting one another up and supporting one another, but are we forgetting about young men? So let's talk now to founder of It's OK, Ed Archer. Ed, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Lots of horrific stories recently. We've got the Andrew Tate story, which is ongoing, obviously. We have the crossbow killer who was inspired, in inverted commas, by watching Andrew Tate videos. We had a report during the week called The Lost Boys about how the young male generation are being neglected, are being forgotten. So on International Women's Day, can you sort of like try and illustrate for me what is going wrong for young men?
For me, I think a lot of men aren't being heard or feel they're not being heard, which is kind of a sad state of affairs, to be fair. In my life, I've got lots of women. I've got 3 daughters, obviously, so I know what it's like to have a lot of, should we say, strong women surrounding me. And I think if men aren't being listened to as well, I think they do feel kind of neglected, whether that be their physical health or mental health or just how they're feeling.
So, if we're not listening to men, surely it's down to men to talk up more? Is this the issue here?
To an extent, yes, but I think it's become a very societal norm that men have just got to just tough it out, be the strong ones. I think for so many years, men have been looked at as the provider, the strong one, the protector. And even though those kind of narratives are changing, they're not changing fast enough. So men have still got that on their shoulder. And there is that kind of stigma that you are weak if you talk about your feelings, which, by the way, you're not.
And that's what you encourage men to do, to talk about your feelings. Yeah. We all know there's a problem with our young men and suicide, as well as educational issues. They're not doing very well in education. So everything does seem stacked against them at the moment. Is this, do you think, fueling the rise of, let's be honest here, out-and-out misogynists like Andrew Tate, who is giving them a role model?
Yeah, and I think unfortunately this is the kind of negative sides of social media where, to an extent, you've got people that weaponise these kind of things, whether they actually believe what they're saying or they do it just for social media fame. But unfortunately, there are people in the world that will listen to everything a certain person says and believe it as gospel.
And how much is parenting to do with this? I mean, you know, are younger men focusing on the likes of Andrew Tate because they don't have strong role models in their life? I mean, how important is the traditional family?
In my, obviously, I was brought up with how you would say, a traditional family, mum, dad, sister. But I genuinely don't believe that having that normal family life is the reason behind. Thank you. Stop. I think the normal family, it doesn't really matter. It's more the fact that if you've got those people that have got the better morals, it doesn't matter who brings you up, just to be able to guide you as a child into adulthood.
OK. Thank you very much, Ed. And Ed, if any men listening want to get in touch with your organisation, how do they do it?
Any sort of social media, It's OK campaign. But obviously, if you can't, then you can contact all sorts like Shout, the Samaritans. As long as you're talking to people, that's the most important thing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's Ed Archer, who is founder of It's OK. Now, we will be coming back to this subject, but we've run out of time for now. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show, including more of that. And already a summer of royal pomp and pageantry as well. British troops have been brushing up their skills on the parade grounds. But first, let's get the news with Lewis Mackenzie, who's also brushing up his parade ground skills. Here he is.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 1:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. A man has climbed Big Ben draped in a Palestinian flag. At least 9 emergency service vehicles are at Bridge Street at Parliament, with crowds looking on from beyond a police cordon. Westminster Bridge has been closed down and tours of the parliamentary estate have been cancelled for the rest of the day. A Met Police spokesperson says officers are at the scene working to bring the incident to a safe conclusion. They are being assisted by London Fire Brigade and London Ambulance Services. It's been reported that the incident started at around 8 a.m. this morning. We'll, of course, bring you the very latest as we have it here on GB News. At least 12 people have been injured in a shooting at a pub in Toronto. 4 victims have non-life-threatening injuries, but the others' conditions are yet unknown. Toronto police say the suspect was wearing a black balaclava and was seen fleeing in a silver car and is still at large. The Reform MP, Rupert Lowe, has been suspended from the party amid allegations he made physical threats against the party chairman, Zia Youssef. Mr Youssef confirmed the party had also received complaints from 2 female employees about serious bullying in Mr Lowe's parliamentary and constituency offices. In a statement, Mr Lowe said he was disappointed but not surprised to learn of what he said were false allegations. He also says that the allegations of bullying at his offices are not about him, and he's talking to legal advice. And finishing off with some breaking news, some pro-Palestine activists have vandalised US President Donald Trump's golf course in Scotland. Red paint was sprayed over the clubhouse, while the message "Gaza is not for sale" was painted on the lawn of Trump's Turnberry course. Palestine Action says it's in response to his administration's plan to, quote, take over Gaza and ethnically cleanse the region. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our hope is that this will have impact to be able to drive connections for those who have been suffering from hearing loss and allow them to experience those special moments.
Okay, so how does the hearing aid feature actually work?
It's really simple, and that is what's so beautiful about the feature. We designed it so it could be used across all age groups, all tech savviness, if you will. You simply take a hearing test right on your iPhone using the AirPods Pro 2. It creates a personalized hearing profile, which then automatically pre-programs the AirPods Pro 2 to work as a hearing assistive device. And so just with the touch of a button, you'll now be able to augment the frequencies where you may need some assistance. And what's beautiful about the hearing test is it's a clinically validated audiogram. So we compared it to what is considered gold standard in the hearing world. And the hearing aid the hearing aid feature basically simply turns on and allows you to use it not just when you're talking with one another, like with another individual, but whether you're using it across phone calls, your media, your entertainment. So it's a really simple experience.
And have you noticed, because this has been rolled out around the world before it's come here to Britain, but have you seen a spike in people realising that they actually have hearing loss as a result of taking the test with this feature?
I can anecdotally share with you that even just in my circle and talking to people sometimes have picked up things that they didn't expect and noticed that they had some hearing issues. What's probably been so impactful is the letters we get from customers. One of the ones that we just got last week was a grandmother who was able to hear her soft-spoken grandchild for the first time by using this. And I think that is what's so special about it. We've already heard from customers around the world who have been able to use it over the past few months, how it's made an impact in their life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 PM every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 PM and 5 AM as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for your company this Saturday lunchtime. Remember, do keep getting in touch, gbnews.com/your say, certainly on the latest debate we've just had, which we are coming back to on International Women's Day, about how men are struggling with their role in the New World Order. Lots of you blaming radical feminism. Some of you even mentioned the fact that I've got short hair and wear trousers. No idea what any of that means, but we're coming back to that story. I am indeed Dawn Neeson, and I am indeed wearing trousers. I do have short hair, but I'm quite happy being a girl, just in case you're wondering. Now, ahead of a summer of royal pomp and pageantry, British troops have been brushing up on their parade skills to make sure all the planned ceremonial events go without a hitch. May and June will see hundreds of servicemen and women involved in celebrations around the 80th anniversary of VED. GB News was given access to the foot guards and bands of the Household Division as they marched onto Wellington Barracks Parade Ground next to Buckingham Palace for their annual inspection. Royal correspondent Cameron Walker joined them. Here's his story.
Summers started early for the Household Division, donning their red tunics a few weeks before the clock change for an annual inspection, making sure they're ready to represent brand Britain on the world stage.
So make sure on that mark time the knees are fully up straight away.
For weeks, guardsmen have waxed their boots, polished their buckles, bearskins groomed and cleaned, exceptional attention to detail. Here's Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Foynet, Brigade Major of the Household Division.
It may seem that what we're doing here is a million miles away from what fighting soldiers do in the field, but these are fighting soldiers. Discipline, attention to detail, really are the hallmarks of a decent soldier.
All this at a time the Prime Minister's considering sending peacekeeping troops to Ukraine. The Princess of Wales's regiment, the Irish Guards, were first onto the parade ground at Wellington Barracks, followed by the Coldstream Guards, trooping their colour this year in front of the King and celebrating their 375th anniversary.
Do off the hard work of the last couple of months of getting ready for this. Make sure you show yourselves off.
It's these guardsmen who could be welcoming President Donald Trump during his unprecedented second state visit to the UK. And some of them will be taking part in commemorations this summer, marking 80 years since the end of the Second World War.
I just wanted to express, on behalf of the nation, my heartfelt gratitude for the extraordinarily valuable contributions and personal sacrifices that you and your families continue to make in the name of duty.
The King takes his role as head of the armed forces very seriously. Earlier this week, he visited British aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales, calling it a powerful emblem of the Royal Navy's strength. And his Household Division will show its strength during the King's birthday parade in June. But beneath the pomp and pageantry, battle-ready soldiers are always on guard in an uncertain world. Cameron Walker, GB News in London.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Great summer coming up. However, if you do want to escape and you want some winter sun, here is a forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations for you.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're curious about what the weather's doing further afield, well, across the Mediterranean, there's a lot of unsettled weather at the moment, especially Iberia into the south of France. But for Greece, mostly fine, sunny spells, still a bit of a breeze for the Greek islands. Italy, towards the south, yes, plenty of settled weather, but towards the north and northwest, as well as the south of France, unsettled, but not as unsettled as Portugal, Spain, Gibraltar, Madeira, where heavy showers and strong winds will be continuing through the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Oh, yeah, have fun if you're going away anywhere nice. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show, so you don't want to be moving a muscle, not for the next few hours in any case. There's been a security breach at the Houses of Parliament. Emergency services are at the Palace of Westminster, where a barefoot man is standing on a ledge holding a Palestinian flag several metres up Big Ben. Westminster Bridge, which leads to St Thomas's Hospital, let's not forget, has been closed for much of the day, and around 100 people have started to gather on the corner of Parliament Square to show their support for the man ahead of a pro-Palestine protest in central London this afternoon. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Plenty of hazy sunshine across the UK today. There will be a few showers around, particularly across the far southwest and the far north, but feeling warm for the time of year. Winds coming in from the southwest, drawing in warm air from the near continent. You can see that with the yellows on the map there. Across the whole of the UK, temperatures well above average. Plenty of hazy sunshine across much of the UK, though cloudier skies for parts of Northern Ireland, fringes of Wales and the West Country, where a few showers are possible. Some further spells of rain pushing from Orkney into Shetland through the day as well. But most places dry in that sunshine, temperatures well above average, 16, 17, 18, possibly even 19 Celsius across North Wales into northwest England. So temperatures this time of year should be around 7 to 11 Celsius. Into the evening time, further showers across the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, but most places will be dry. 1 or 2 heavier bursts possible, but generally the rain will be light. Some hazy spells of sunshine ahead of dusk across Northern Ireland as the sun sets here. Plenty of dry weather for much of England and Wales, though still 1 or 2 showers possible in the west from some medium level cloud. Not too much to spoil things. And then a dry evening to come for most. Overnight it stays dry with clear spells and still some further patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. And it remains breezy across southwest England. Elsewhere winds will be light. We could see some mist and fog patches forming, particularly across central southern parts of Scotland, northern England, and here temperatures dropping to around 4 or 5 Celsius. But a sunny start for many. Mist and fog across parts of Scotland, northern England, slowly burning back to the coast through the day, and for most it's a dry day, plenty of sunshine, breezy across the southwest still, but sunnier here compared to Saturday, and rain just still affecting the far north of Scotland. Temperatures again well above average, reaching close to 20 Celsius by the afternoon. See you again soon.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Me neither. Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. I've just been told to have a big smile ready for the dogs. Yes, because... Me neither, because we're going to Crofts now. It is nearly showtime. The world's biggest dog show is in full swing, with thousands of pampered pooches and proud owners battling it out for top honours, from tiny terriers to towering Great Danes. Who will steal the show and claim ultimate Best in Show title? So let's cross over to now our very own Best in Show, and that's GB News West Midlands reporter Jack Carlson, who is at Crofts surrounded by all these lovely pooches.
Well, thank you very much, Dawn. Best in Show, I'll take that title, certainly. There's only 7 that can win tomorrow night. 24,000 dogs competing here at Crofts. But this is a great thing about Crofts. It's not just those dogs that are competing, it's all of the stalls and the great dog charities. And we're joined by the fantastic founder and adoption manager from No to Dog Meat. Julia, you're the founder. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just tell us about what the charity is about.
Hi, hi GB News viewers. We're here today at Crufts. We're a London-based charity that campaigns to end the dog and cat meat trade in Asia, and we have a shelter in China with over 700 dogs needing homes.
And tell us who we've got here. So you've brought some beautiful dogs along with you, so just explain to us who we've got.
Well, we've got Annabelle. Annabelle's here. She's a Chow Chow, and Annabelle was rescued from the infamous Yulin Dog Meat Festival in China, which happens every June. And sadly, when I rescued her, they'd already started to dismember her alive. So her eye is missing, and also, as you can see, she has a lot of skin problems. And much of this was due to the poor conditions that she'd been kept in, and the fact that literally she was being dismembered as we saved her.
We've got Rupert down here as well.
Oh yeah, Rupert is an absolutely magnificent Alaskan Malamute, and he came from a dog meat market close to Beijing, close to the airport, which is just proof that this atrocity can happen everywhere. And
we've got Felicity as well.
Oh, and Felicity is an absolute star. Felicity came from a slaughterhouse in Dombey, and at the time she was hanging up by her tail, and they cut her down. And she's absolutely loving the limelight here today.
I can tell. They are absolutely beautiful. And Nikki, you're the adoption manager. Just what pressures are there, and what work are you trying to do, of course, to be able to rehome these wonderful animals?
So we're trying our best to get all our dogs adopted. We've got 700 in the shelter, as Julia's just said. We're looking for everyone to reach out to us, to let us know they're available to adopt our dogs. We fly them basically from China into Paris, and then we bring them from Paris to the UK to their new homes, and they live happily lives like Annabelle, Felicity, Rupert.
And what has Crufts been like for you? You know, we're on day 3 now. You know, there's 130,000 people coming. These are, I guess, really important events for you to come to be able to spread the word about the work that you do.
Absolutely, and also, as you can see, Crufts is quite a commercial event, so there's lots of fundraising. So what we've done for this year's Crufts is we've got lots of little Crufts special balls, poop bags, dog trinkets that people can buy, and this helps us raise vital funds for the charity because, of course, we need it to feed the pups until they can find loving homes.
Fantastic. And just tell us about, you know, the kind of reception that you get here in the UK, because these are beautiful animals, you know, and they're the kind of animal that I wish I could have. I think a lot of people wish they could have something this fluffy and beautiful.
Well, as you can see, they're very well behaved. Our dogs come in, they adapt to life really well. They've no vices. They've obviously got the physical effects of what's gone on, but as you can see, they're really happy with all the strangers coming along. Everyone can come along and pet them and stroke them, and they're very, very welcomed into the community.
And Julia, just tell us a little bit how people can donate if they'd like to donate to your charity.
Well, we have a website, www.notodogmeat.com. So if you go on there, you can find out all about what we're doing. You can donate. You can buy a lot of our merchandise online. And because we are in London and we hold many events, we always welcome new volunteers. In fact, every single person you see here today is a volunteer, and they've all generously given our time, and that makes a massive difference to us.
Well, Julia and Nikki, thank you very much. Annabelle, Felicity, Rupert as well, the absolute stars of the show, some of the stars of the show here at Crufts. As I was saying, it's not just about those fantastic events, those competitions as we look ahead to Best in Show tomorrow night. These fantastic charities that do fantastic work all around the UK and all around the world as well, Dawn.
Jack, just quickly before you go, have there been any protests there? Because we used to get protests at Crufts about cruelty.
Not that I'm aware of this year, certainly no. There are, of course, really high standards for the welfare of the dogs that compete there. And I was speaking to Bill Lambert, who's part of the well-being team at the Kennel Club, and they saying that it's been a good year for them in terms of well-being and welfare, and of course making sure these dogs are looked after, and any dog that competes is in the best of health. So no protests that I'm aware of so far, Dawn.
Brilliant, thank you very much, and give my love to the No to Dog Meat ladies. I met them in the studio, and their dogs are indeed all very gorgeous indeed. Thank you very much. That's GB News West Midlands reporter Jack Carson, who is at Crufts. Oh, there, and we get a sound effect as well. Not from Jack, I hope that's one of the dogs. In any case, thank you very much, Jack. That's lovely. We were going back there later on in the show as well to catch up on whether Jack is actually winning the Best of Show. I mean, I'd vote for him, wouldn't you? What do you make of Crufts, Ricky? Is it a bit old school now, or...?
No, I think there's a place for it. Some of those dogs look lovely as well.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I've always... I can't say that I know the ins and outs of crafts, but I've just always seen it as a sort of part of British tradition, heritage.
It's always on the telly, wasn't it?
Yeah, man, it's on the telly very often.
Yeah.
So, no, I think generally I've got a warm view of it.
Fluffy feeling.
Yeah, indeed.
And those dogs are very fluffy. How about you? And
I'm not much of a dog lover, which I think lots of people think makes me a psychopath. But you know, it's people. But look, people love it, so cool.
Are you more of a cat person?
Definitely not.
Oh.
If it was dog, or if it was a dog, or if I had to have a dog or a cat, it'd be a dog.
Okay. What? Any pets at all?
No.
No, not.
No, I like people.
You like people?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's reassuring.
Yeah. I mean, you're not a psychopath, obviously.
I'm definitely more of a dog man, I'd say.
Over people, I think I might be joining you on that one. But let me know what you think about we're talking today, whether it's crafts or any other stories. Certainly the person up Big Ben, who's still there, by the way. Lots of you are encouraging to jump, maybe. Couldn't possibly comment. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and there's loads more coming up on today's show, so please don't go anywhere. Is Britain blind to the COVID catastrophe? I'll be asking that and more next. But first, it is time for, spring is almost very nearly properly here. Here's the weather. Let's see if it is.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Plenty of hazy sunshine across the UK today. There will be a few showers around, particularly across the far southwest and the far north, but feeling warm for the time of year. Winds coming in from the southwest, drawing in warm air from the near continent. You can see that with the yellows on the map there. Across the whole of the UK, temperatures well above average. Plenty of hazy sunshine across much of the UK, though cloudier skies for parts of Northern Ireland, fringes of Wales and the West Country, where a few showers are possible. Some further spells of rain pushing from Orkney into Shetland through the day as well. But most places dry in that sunshine, temperatures well above average, 16, 17, 18, possibly even 19 Celsius across North Wales into northwest England. So temperatures this time of year should be around 7 to 11 Celsius. Into the evening time, further showers across the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, but most places will be dry. 1 or 2 heavier bursts possible, but generally the rain will be light. Some hazy spells of sunshine ahead of dusk across Northern Ireland as the sun sets here. Plenty of dry weather for much of England and Wales, though still 1 or 2 showers possible in the west from some medium level cloud. Not too much to spoil things. And then a dry evening to come for most. Overnight it stays dry with clear spells and still some further patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. And it remains breezy across southwest England. Elsewhere winds will be light. We could see some mist and fog patches forming, particularly across central southern parts of Scotland, northern England, and here temperatures dropping to around 4 or 5 Celsius. But a sunny start for many. Mist and fog across parts of Scotland, northern England, slowly burning back to the coast through the day. And for most, it's a dry day, plenty of sunshine. Breezy across the southwest still, but sunnier here compared to Saturday. And rain just still affecting the far north of Scotland. Temperatures again well above average, reaching close to 20 Celsius by the afternoon. See you again soon.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For a chance to win the cash, 2 watches and a designer bag, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of March, and this is the weekend on GB News. Thank you for your company. Your stories this hour. The reform scandal surrounding MP Rupert Lowe continues as the party on top of the polls is thrown into turmoil. This morning, their chief whip, Lee Anderson, has come out saying they've got a monumental task on their hands. And yeah, Russia kills at least 14 as they continue to hit Ukraine with strikes. Well, now the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, is saying all adult men in his country will be trained for war. Is Europe preparing for an all-out war, and are we in the UK ready? And a developing story, this one. Yes, he's still up there. Emergency services are still keeping an eye on that person who is up Big Ben. You can see your picture there with a Palestinian flag. Quite what he's hoping to achieve, we don't know, but he has stopped ambulances getting to St Thomas's Hospital, which is just over Westminster Bridge, which is shut down. I just hope you don't need an ambulance this afternoon, people out there. We will keep you up to date with the latest on that story. And who will be crowned top dog? Crufts 2025. It takes place in Birmingham. Our reporter, Jack Carson, best in show for me personally, will be there with all the latest news.
Well, there are more than 100,000 people coming to Crufts over these 4 days of the event. Dogs in all shapes and sizes. Only one can be top dog. That's crowned tomorrow. I'll have more details.
Ooh. Well, that one was cute, wasn't it? I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. I might be wrong, but I think that one was a little Labrador puppy, maybe a golden retriever. I'm not sure, but it was certainly very cute. I'm dying to ask Jack whether any of the dogs have had a little whittle over him, because dogs, especially the puppies, come on, they're dogs. That's what they do. I'm realist. Come on. Let me know what you think about all the stories we're discussing today. It's very simple to get involved in the show. gbnews.com/your say. Many of you want to have your say about the. I want to say the word idiot. In fact, I'm going to. The idiot who's up Big Ben with his Palestinian flag. We thought he might be coming down, but no, he's still up there. We will bring you up to date on that as soon as we have any more news. Keeping me company today is political commentator Andy Williams, who doesn't like dogs or cats. Not that I'm shaming him. And social policy analyst Rugby peasant who went like I did at that little puppy.
Adorable.
Oh, gorgeous. Yes, OK, Andy, we'll come back to you later. But before we get stuck into today's stories, let's get the news with fellow dog lover Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 2 o'clock. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. A man has climbed Big Ben, draped in a Palestinian flag. At least 9 emergency vehicles are at Bridge Street at Parliament, with crowds looking on from beyond a police cordon. Westminster Bridge has been closed down and tours of the parliamentary estate have been cancelled for the rest of the day. A Met Police spokesperson says officers are at the scene working to bring the incident to a safe conclusion. They are being assisted by London Fire Brigade and London Ambulance Services. It's reported the incident started at around 8 a.m. this morning. We'll, of course, bring you the very latest as it comes in. Meanwhile, pro-Palestine activists have vandalised President Trump's golf course in Scotland. Red paint was sprayed over the clubhouse, while the message "Gaza is not for sale" was painted on the lawn of the US president's Turnberry course. This action is reportedly in response to his administration's plans to, quote, take over Gaza and ethnically cleanse the region. The Reform MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from the party amid allegations he made physical threats against the party chairman Zia Youssef. Mr Youssef confirmed the party had also received complaints from 2 female employees about serious bullying in Mr Lowe's parliamentary and constituency offices. In a statement, Mr Lowe said he was disappointed but not surprised to learn of what he said were false allegations. He also says that the allegations of bullying at his offices are not about him, and he's taking legal advice. A migrant has died as more than 180 others attempted to get to the UK today. It marks the 8th consecutive day of small boat crossings. It takes the total number who have crossed since last Saturday to around 1,900. And has shattered all previous records for the number of migrants' arrivals at this point in the year since the crisis began in 2016. At least 12 people have been injured during a shooting at a pub in Toronto. 4 victims have non-life-threatening injuries, but the others' conditions are yet to be unknown. Toronto police say the suspect was wearing a black balaclava and was seen fleeing in a silver car and is still at large. Members of a Russian spy ring are facing lengthy jail terms for one of the largest and most complex enemy operations to be uncovered on UK soil. The 3 Bulgarian nationals were found guilty at the Old Bailey of spying on an industrial scale and putting lives and national security at risk. Now, today marks International Women's Day. The annual celebration aims to champion women's achievements across all aspects of life. Speaking at a visit at RAF Northolt, Chancellor Rachel Reeves met with women personnel in the armed forces.
Well, it's fantastic at RAF at Northolt to be able to meet with women personnel in our armed forces on our front line. International Women's Day is an opportunity to celebrate how far we've come, but also as a government, and for me personally as the first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer, to redouble our efforts to ensure that we have opportunities for women, which is why we are going further and faster on childcare and breakfast clubs to help parents, but particularly women, balance work and family life.
And finally, 4 European brown bears at Whipsnade Zoo have woken up from hibernation. The bears Mana, Minnie, Naya and Cinderella have finally gotten out of bed after 3 months of deep slumber, signalling the start of spring at the UK's largest zoo. Fantastic pictures there. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Rita, and welcome back, you lot. Thank you for joining me on a Saturday lunchtime. If you're wondering what I'm doing, when you get to a certain, you know this, ladies, when you get to a certain age, Your face sort of needs hoiking up sometimes. I was just hoiking it into position. There you go. That's my excuse. International Women's Day. Have a good one, girls. Right, now, let's get straight into today's story, shall we? US President Donald Trump's Turnberry Golf Resort has been forced to close after activists vandalised the course in a dramatic protest. The words "Gaza is not for sale" were spray-painted on the lawn and holes were dug up. We're bringing more on that story as and when we get to that. It's a breaking story there for you. OK, and we've also got the chap up at Big Ben still with his Palestinian flag too. There was a chance he was coming down, but no, he's still there. We will be bringing you that story as and when it happens. But first, MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from Reform UK amid allegations he's made physical threats against the party chairman, Zia Youssef. Their chief whip, Lee Anderson, says they now have a monumental task on their hands, saying that he bears, quote, no malice towards Rupert, and to remove the whip was a deeply painful thing to do. But delivering for our country must come first, and no man is bigger than the party. Mr Lowe, in response, said, Lee, what you have said is simply not true. There is no credible evidence to say I have not cooperated. It is false. Adding, launching this vindictive assault is quite frankly pathetic. Joining me now is political commentator Aman Bogle. Aman, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining us. What do you make of this fallout?
Well, Dawn, I think it's fair to say that, in the quagmire that is Westminster, let's be honest, the green benches are full of people who are not there for the right reasons. Both Nigel and Rupert are two of the good ones. Without Nigel, we would never have had Brexit. As Donald Trump said, he is Mr. Brexit. And Rupert, he is a great MP who is a breath of fresh air, both in Westminster and in his constituency. I mean, look, how many other MPs donate all of their salary to local charities? He's a real details man. And I think if you see what the fallout has been, look at all the people who are laughing at this. Look at all the people who are celebrating this. And it's very evident that as an insurgent force, Reform UK have come up through the last, year or so, and really challenged to hold both the Labour Party and the Conservatives' feet to the fire. Let's be honest, both Nigel and Rupert are both mass appeal leaders. It's very rare for an insurgent party to come up in the polls like this because, let's be honest, they're talking about what really matters to people on the doorstep, be it immigration, be it the rape gangs, be it the day-to-day real attacks by the Labour government on the pensioners, on the farmers, and all the rest of it. So I think one of the first things I learned, back when I was a Conservative Party candidate, is you don't wash out your dirty laundry in the public because you have to have a party that is serious for government and is made up of serious people that are ready to lead.
Well, this is the problem. I mean, now, do you think this is a storm in a teacup, Aman? Do you think they will get together, bang their heads together? That's literally what I feel like they need to do, and sort this out. Or do you think this is the end for one of these men with reform?
On the contrary, I think this is, in many ways, a storm in a teacup. And of course, don't forget, a lot of people are confecting a lot of things around it, trying to speculate whether who is trying to outdo who and who is trying to undermine who. I think this is a storm in a teacup. And of course, it also shows us that Reform do need to have a better handle on how to deal with such things which are inevitable in any growing political party. I mean, let's just go back a few years and remind ourselves of how many scandals and controversies that both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party have had. But they have processes in place to deal with them. And I guess this is a lot of these things are teething issues for insurgent and growing parties like Reform. But this is not the end of Reform. Let's be serious here. Reform are doing well in the polls. The only, can you remember in living memory a party out of the other than the top two who have come up in the polls and resonated the way Reform has? I can't.
And I can't, to be honest with you. Just finally, do you think the party could survive without Nigel Farage in charge?
Look, Nigel is a leader who has had a mass appeal for a very long time. When he was running UKIP, when he was running the Brexit Party, when he was running the campaign to help deliver the vote for Leave, he is an evergreen leader. And you know what? We are blessed to have him leading such a magnificent challenge to hold both the major parties' feet to the fire. And not only that, look, free democracy can only work when you have a decent opposition, which can pick apart what the government is getting wrong. And as a real alternative, what we really need to see is the right to unite. The focus should be to get this ridiculous waste of a space socialist government out of number 10, because my goodness, Labour are on course to wreck Britain.
Well, it'd be nice if Reform realised that lots of our viewers are very angry about what's happened here. Aman, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much. That's political commentator Aman Bogle on Reform tearing themselves apart. OK, now let's move on, shall we? Yeah, we're going to talk about it because we have to. 5 years on, is Britain still in denial over its COVID response? Critics say we don't need a day of reflection, which, by the way, is tomorrow, just in case you were wondering. And we don't need reflection. What we need is answers. Were pandemic mistakes ignored, and what must we learn for the future? I'm joined now by data and COVID expert Tim White. Tim, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We are having an inquiry about how the COVID pandemic was handled. It's going on longer than and costing millions. I mean, it's just been going on forever and ever. Other countries got it over and done with within months, and America are now really, really thinking long and hard about how they handle things and how they handle the next pandemic, if there is one. Do we need a day of reflection tomorrow, or can we just crack on with sorting it out when it happens again?
First of all, good afternoon, Dawn. Thanks for inviting me on, and happy Women's Day to you and everyone else watching. To answer your question, I think to many of us then no, we don't need such a day. But for those people who have been touched personally by COVID and the disaster that it became for any number of reasons, particularly those still grieving, then perhaps we do, and perhaps that is the right thing to do. With regards to the inquiry, yes, I think too much money has been spent, too much time has been wasted as well. And I think a lot of us have probably already come to conclusions, but let's find out and see what the final report says. And the most important thing, as you touched on really there, Dawn, is that we have to learn so that we're in a better position for the next pandemic, because we do know from history there is bound to be one at some stage.
Yeah, I mean, our inquiry seems to be a blame game. Who did what wrong when and how much it cost us? What we really need to be doing as a country is preparing should this awful horror happen again.
Yeah, fair comment. But when people do make mistakes and catastrophic mistakes, then they do need to be held up, don't they? And we do need to learn from them. There's a good argument to say that in such crises, you only really learn from your mistakes. It's very difficult to look back and say, well, we got everything right. And some mistakes made by the government, you have to be a little bit, let's say, understanding of, because everyone was still learning at the time. A lot was done right and a lot was done wrong by many countries. But it is interesting to see that the US is calling in someone now who was scapegoated and really ostracized by much of his community for his views, when saying that the US should have been a little bit more like Sweden and opened up a little more. And Sweden didn't fare too badly at all out of the pandemic.
No, indeed. Tim, thank you very much. That's our data and COVID expert, Tim White, there. Thank you very much. Now, look, I mean, Tim's got a very good point there, doesn't he, Ricky? I mean, obviously, yes, people lost their lives to the horrors that was COVID, but also lots of people lost their lives for the lockdown. Lots of people weren't treated for their cancers. Lots of people have severe mental health issues going on. Lots of people took that.
And it's contributed towards a huge NHS backlog. There's no two ways about that.
Exactly. So, I just want answers now. I want to know what's going to be done to look after us next time to prevent the same horrors that we experienced then. You know, reflection, yeah, OK, it was terribly sad, and I'm sorry that people lost their lives. But people are still suffering because of the way we dealt with the problem.
No, absolutely, and I think that there's the side effects of those lockdowns. One example is huge increases in speech therapy for young children, because there's such a lack of communication between them and their peers. They're barely able to communicate, and I think that that's such a real shame. I think there's definitely lessons to be learned from the pandemic, and I think we need to be prepared you want to say, you know, hopefully there won't be a next one, but it's a very strong possibility.
Yeah.
We live in such an interconnected world that there is that possibility. So there are lessons to be learned, and there's certain things that need to be done differently. And I think that includes analysing the impact of the lockdowns, especially on the sort of, you know, the lack of social interaction or the negative impacts of that, and also the impact for the economy at large.
Yeah, talking of money, I mean, the inquiry, UK's COVID inquiry led by Baroness Heather Hallett, is on track to cost nearly £500 million.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. And with 55 million being squandered on up to 150 lawyers.
I mean, yeah, I don't think I think it was right that there was an inquiry, but I think the way has been run has been a bit of a witch hunt, and it's been going on forever, and it's really, really expensive. I'd say two things. One is, you know, I think at the time, lockdowns were the right way to go. I do still think that, because we didn't know at the time how severe the virus was.
Even the second lockdown, after we were aware of what was going on a bit more?
Yeah, because with hindsight, it's easy to say that, but actually the situation moved incredibly quickly, and so I do think overall that was the right way to go. I actually think Boris Johnson made a mistake by prevaricating too much over locking down the second time, but there obviously have been really negative consequences of going into lockdown. Rakib's mentioned a few. Another one is that we now have 6 million people on out-of-work benefits in this country, and that number has dramatically risen. If you look at sickness benefit in particular, I think I'm right in saying the number of people on sickness benefits has trebled since COVID, and it can't be because we're 3 times sicker as a country. This is a big problem for the Labour government to solve there. So it has caused all sorts of issues.
It's like, you know, this national day of reflection. It's like whenever something horrible happens, we say thoughts and prayers. Well, I'm actually getting sick of thoughts and prayers. I want someone to do something now and stop horrible things happening.
Oh, no, absolutely. That includes learning the lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. There's no way for me that was handled, in my view, effectively.
Agree. And the reality is we were underprepared. Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
And I think there's something that the very important element of this, we talk about the merits or the disadvantages of the lockdown, but I think a big point is that we had people there, they set the rules, but in terms of their own personal commitment to sticking to those rules after setting them for the rest of the population, I think that really undermines trust between citizen and state.
Yeah.
I think that should be a big part of the discussion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The hypocrisy at the time of the very people standing up there, you know, stay at home, at the meantime seeing their mistresses.
Totally agree, and that's why I think Boris Johnson deserves to go down as one of the worst prime ministers in British history, apart from his successor, who was even worse. You know, he's a catastrophe, and I think he will be remembered as such.
Yeah, but if we're talking about the effects of lockdown, where, you know, now there's 7.5 million people languish in hospital waiting list alone, Labour were the party that were going, no, lockdowns have to go on longer, they have to be tougher. So, I mean, they weren't exactly going to help the situation themselves, were they?
Well, I mean, on the NHS backlog, that had risen dramatically under the Tories before the pandemic.
Of course it had risen,
so they mismanaged the NHS badly, which is why that's part of the reason, actually, that our response was so bad, was that we had underfunded the health service
but it
for a long
became
time.
a national COVID service, let's be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I say, I think at the time, lockdowns were the right way to go, but with hindsight, of course, it's easy to say maybe we should have done things differently.
OK, well, let me know what you think about this one. I know it's another subject that really gets lots of you angry at gbnews.com/your site, and I will read as many of your messages as I can out as soon as I can. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There is loads more coming. It is really packed show. There's been a security breach at the Houses of Parliament. Yes, he's still up there. There he is, up on Big Ben with his Palestinian flag. Meanwhile, Westminster Bridge is shut, stopping ambulances getting to the hospital on the other side of it. Yeah, let me know what you think about that one. And also, US President Donald Trump's Turnberry Golf Resort has been forced to close after activists vandalised the course with the words, "Gaza is not for sale." Ugh, 2 stories there for you. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Why do you want to do this, my friend?
I want to raise awareness about what disabled people can do and try and change some perceptions on what is possible.
So, Craig, what happened to you when you were 18 years old? Because your life changed forever, didn't it, in Afghanistan?
It did, yeah. I was on routine foot patrol, and several feet in front of me was a Commando IED. They triggered it, and yeah, triple amputee. Both legs and only the one hand.
And how did those injuries change your life, Craig?
Oh, yeah, in the worst way possible. You know, everything I loved was taken away from me. Windsurfing taken away, guitar taken away. Couldn't even hug my parents or speak in the first initial few weeks. So it was a complete flip upside down.
I'm wheelchair bound and I have been for 2 years, and I only concentrate on what I can't do. And you're actually coming at this from the opposite way, and you're saying, if you're disabled, these are the things you can do.
I'd say to you, focus on how you can't do those things. So how to actually achieve the things that you're not saying you can do. And if you give it a bit of time and thought, I'm pretty sure you'd achieve it.
Wow. And then what's led you to this challenge now? I mean, travelling 6,000 nautical miles from Mexico to Japan by yourself.
My dad taught me how to sail when I was very young, and that lasted up until I joined the army. When I was injured, the doctors saying, you know, look, sports are pretty much a no-go. My dad refused to take that as a thing. He gave me the details to the Paralympic sailing coach, and then I was in the Paralympic team for a little while. I didn't go to any games, but that reintroduced me to sailing and what was possible in the sailing world.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Newsom. Thank you very much for your company this Saturday afternoon. Now, today is International Women's Day. Happy day, girls. An annual commemoration aiming to celebrate women's achievements in all aspects of life, basically. Speaking at a visit to RAF Northolt on Thursday, Chancellor Rachel Reeves met with women personnel in the armed forces. Let's have a listen.
Well, it's fantastic at RAF Northolt to be able to meet with women personnel in our armed forces on our front line. International Women's Day is an opportunity to celebrate how far we've come, but also as a government, and for me personally, as the first ever female Chancellor of the Exchequer, to redouble our efforts to ensure that we have opportunities for women, which is why we are going further and faster on childcare and breakfast clubs to help parents, but particularly women, balance work and family life.
OK, and every year, as part of marking the day, Labour Minister Jess Phillips reads out all the women killed by men in the last year, which is always a really sobering thing, because there's an awful lot and it seems to get worse every year. And this is as it was revealed. Triple killer Kyle Clifford was convicted of raping his ex-girlfriend Louise Hunt before carrying out the horrific murders of Louise herself, her sister Hannah and her mum Carol. It was revealed Clifford watched Andrew Tate videos and was fueled by misogyny. OK, so let's see. I still have my panel on this one. So before we get our expert in on this one, I'm going to go to the panel on this one. I'm going to come to you first on this one, Andy. It's International Women's Day. Yep. There is an International Man's Day, which I didn't know there was, because we don't make a big deal of it.
No.
Should we make more of it?
No, I don't think so. I think there's good reason why we celebrate International Women's Day, which is that if you look at our public life, if you look at jobs, if you look at the number of women running FTSE 100 companies, for example, there is still a huge disparity, and there is no reason why that should be other than structural problems in our society. So I think it's right that we do that. In terms of sort of young men and the challenges there, I think it's the lack of opportunity that men have in society that is a real a real problem. Yeah.
OK, and what do you know, this horrific crossbow killer, I mean, it's one of those stories that really is just like, just beyond belief. I mean, you can't imagine what those poor women went through before they finally died, and certainly the dad coming home, finding his wife and 2 daughters dead. And the fact that this, I'm not going to mention his name, this piece of filth, actually was addicted to Andrew Tate videos and watched them in the run-up to it, to what he did.
Yes.
I mean, what is going wrong with young men that men like Andrew Tate, who, you know, boasts about rape and beating women, are affecting young men so much?
It's a really good question. I think there's a role models question. You know, who are men looking up to? And if they're looking up to the likes of Andrew Tate, that's a massive problem, because he is just one of the worst people on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, truly awful individual. I think there's something about social media as well. We know that social media is damaging young people in particular in all sorts of ways. And there is all sorts of horrendous, violent content out there that people can access easily. And I would like to see social media companies taking more responsibility for taking that sort of stuff down.
Be interesting. OK, joining me now is a psychotherapist, Lucy Beresford. Lucy, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. Lots of reasons to discuss this story today. Obviously, it's International Women's Day. Happy day. We had the horrific crossbow case. We have also know that was linked to Andrew Tate, and we also had a report during the week about the lost boys generation, about young men who are failing in education, lacking role models, turning to the likes of Andrew Tate. What is going on with young men?
Well, to some extent, they don't feel seen. And I know that might sound a bit glib, but it is very important to feel that someone sees you and validates you and encourages you. And if you don't feel that you've got role models that you can look up to, that you can aspire to be like, or let's say healthy role models, and also you don't feel that there are the opportunities for you, that other people are eclipsing you, then that can lead to a lot of frustration and a lot of helplessness. And where social media fuels that is that people become very isolated, very insular, and they make up these pathways themselves, which is why Andrew Tate, because he has such a strong online presence and is so vocal and so consistent in his messaging about trying to, in his view, raise men up, then that can really attract people who feel very lost and who don't feel like they can find their tribe. This is their tribe. Now, obviously, anthropologically, thousands and thousands of years ago, your only tribe as a male would have been to go out and hunt the saber-toothed tiger and have lots of children, and the females would be back in the cave looking after the babies. And that's just what happened for many, many thousands of years. So in a funny way, it's actually only been in the last several hundred years that those pathways have changed. And there has been so much emphasis on trying to make sure that women get the visibility and the opportunities that they deserve. And there is an argument to say that the eye has been taken off the ball with regard to men as well. But the unfortunate thing is, when there is that vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, it's men like Andrew Tate with their very misogynistic preaching that fill that space.
Ricky, I want to bring you back in this conversation. Sure. You made a very interesting point when we were talking about this story earlier about strong male role models in families. And we had an expert on earlier on who was saying not necessarily a factor, but you do think it is?
No, I strongly disagree. I think it is a factor. I think that there's far too many households in the country, they lack a responsible male role model. In inner city parts of London, but also post-industrial towns, there is a fatherlessness epidemic. So I think that really needs to be talked about, that if you have a responsible male role model in the household who makes money in a proper and legitimate way and really takes pride in providing for their family, then that is a positive influence to have.
The interesting thing is that in some families where that is the case, where they've got a man who is being very masculine and taking that role, he is often also, unfortunately, not present because he's so busy working or travelling away. And one of the things that could really help is more male role models in education, that actually it isn't just about in the home, but actually to imagine in the outside world that there are people, that men can be quite nurturing as well as being very masculine.
I do take on that point, but I think ultimately that what is taking place in the home is more important than what would be taking place in the school. in my view. And I think that when you have certain communities, it's been normalised, in my view, that single parenthood, that there's a lack of a responsible male role model in the household. And that's just not within household, that's like entire communities we're talking about here. I do think that's a very serious problem, and it leaves the influence vacuum where clearly coercive and manipulative social media influencers, they take advantage of that vacuum, and I think that's a very negative development for society at large.
Why do you think we've developed that way? Why do you think there are less men willing to take on that strong
I think it's important. I think we've talked about young boys feeling unheard. Now, I think the point to make there, that might be a disproportionate reality in certain communities. Are we talking about young Indian origin men, young Indian origin boys, Chinese origin boys? Not necessarily. I think we're talking about particular communities here who are disproportionately impacted by all this. And I think that while we're an international hotspot for family breakdown, and the fact that family has become more of a sort of a non-topic in our politics, I don't think we're really going to get to grips with the problem here.
But the problem with that, and I don't disagree fundamentally with what you're saying, but I think there are some nuances around it, one of which is that the statistics around domestic abuse in England are still unbelievably horrific. It's 1 in 4 women face domestic violence in relationships where there is a male figure present. So it isn't enough that you have a male role model in the family. It's actually the quality of that relationship is really important. And if you're in a family where the man still denigrates the woman, where there is physical violence, where there is financial coercive control, where there is denigration in terms of contempt or belittling, that unfortunately is also what young small boys are having as an experience in growing up, which is why I think the education is also important, because it allows children, young boys in particular, to have a variety of exposure. Because not everybody, in an ideal world, well, it wouldn't be an ideal world in my view, but you'd have that situation where you grow up in a village and you're surrounded by your grandparents and you're surrounded by all of their friends, and there's a whole network of people. We are much more atomised as a society.
Absolutely.
And the problem is that is fueling young boys' interest in people like Andrew Tate.
Lucy Beresford, thank you very much. Much more coming up on today's show. I'm Dawn Lees, GBNews, but first, let's get these news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you, Dawn. Good afternoon. It's just after 2:30. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. Now we have some breaking news for you now. A body has been recovered by police from the River Thames, which is being linked to the murder investigation in Knockholt in Kent. On Friday, the 14th of February, 43-year-old Lisa Smith was killed after she was shot outside of a pub in Kent. The suspect was known to Lisa, and later that evening, officers found his car abandoned on the Queen Elizabeth II Bridge in Kent. To repeat, a body has been recovered by police in the manhunt for Lisa Smith's murderer. We'll, of course, bring you the very latest as that comes in on GB News. Some more breaking news for you now. A man has climbed Big Ben draped in a Palestine flag. At least 9 emergency service vehicles are at Bridge Street at Parliament, with crowds looking on from beyond a police cordon. Westminster Bridge has been closed down and tours on the parliamentary estate have been cancelled for the rest of the day. A Met Police spokesperson says officers are at the scene working to bring the incident to a safe conclusion. They are being assisted by the London Fire Brigade and London Ambulance Services. It's been reported that the incident started at 8 a.m. this morning. We'll once again bring you the latest as we have it. Meanwhile, pro-Palestine activists have vandalised President Trump's golf course in Scotland. Red paint was sprayed over the clubhouse, while the message "Gaza is not for sale" was painted on the lawn of the US president's Turnberry course. This action is reportedly in response to the administration's plans to take over Gaza and, quote, ethnically cleanse the region. The Reform MP Rupert Lowe has been suspended from the party amid allegations he made physical threats against the party chairman, Zia Youssef. Mr Youssef confirmed the party had also received complaints from 2 female employees about serious bullying in Mr Lowe's parliamentary and constituency offices. In a statement, Mr Lowe said he was disappointed but not surprised to learn of what he says are false allegations. He also said that the allegations of bullying at his offices are not about him. Well, those are the very latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
An advert for clothing retailer Next has been banned after it's judged to feature an unhealthily thin model.
Well, the advert, which was a product listing for denim leggings on the retailer's website, was deemed irresponsible by the Advertising Standards Authority after a single viewer complained.
A single viewer, OK. In its defence, Next said the ad was created with a strong sense of responsibility to both consumers and society, and while admitting the model was slim, they added that she had a healthy and toned physique that aligned with the nature of its product, its leggings.
Well, is it irresponsible to feature slim models in adverts? Let's debate this now. We're joined by the showbiz broadcaster and body positivity advocate Danielle Broadbent and the journalist and broadcaster Emma Trimble. Danielle, let's start from you. Did the Advertising Standards Authority get this one right?
Absolutely. I mean, loads and loads of brands sell leggings and they don't need to feature a super slim model to sell their clothing and their leggings. Now, from my point of view, the ASA are not saying that this woman is unhealthy. They're saying the way she's being styled and the way she's posing looks unhealthy. And with such a trend going on at the moment with curvy plus size models in the fashion weeks, the trends of weight loss pens and things that are going around, are we encouraging, when we see adverts like this, vulnerable young teenage girls who are quite vulnerable anyway with body image? Are we encouraging eating disorders?
I think the idea that society is somehow, holding up anorexia as a virtue is just an anachronism. This woman is healthy. She's being body shamed for being healthy. I think people really just need to, and I know this sounds harsh, but I think they just need to get over themselves. It's this kind of scrutiny that is actually leading to people being so fixated on the way that people look.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for your company this Saturday afternoon. There's plenty more coming up on today's show. It has been packed, hasn't it? But before I tell you what we've got lined up for you, Nana Akwe has joined us in the studio, and Nana always has a cracking show. So what is it today, Nana?
Well, of course, we can't avoid what's happening with reform. They seem to be imploding. So we're asking you, have you lost faith in reform? Has it shifted your view of them? Do you feel, that, hang on, can these people run the country? And then, of course, in my niggle, Meghan Markle. It's been a while. I haven't done a monologue on her for a long time, but frankly, it is 4 years since that awful Oprah interview, and I'll have a little bit of an analysis on her with Love Meghan, and I might even try and make some of the stuff that she's trying to sell in that. And of course, it is International Women's Day, as I said earlier. Daphne Barak will be joining us. She is a very good friend of Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, and it was the Duchess of York that urged Daphne to go and get that mammogram, and that mammogram is likely to have saved her life. So we'll be speaking to Daphne as well as an amazing women helping amazing women. So all of that coming up at 3.
Brilliant. That sounds like an amazing show. Thank you very much. You don't want to miss it. That's now coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Now, a breaking news story for you. US President Donald Trump's Turnberry Golf Resort has been forced to close after activists vandalised the course in a dramatic protest. The words "Gaza is not for sale" were spray painted on the lawn and holes were dug up. Joining me now is peer and former Labour MP Lord Warney. Hello, Lord Warney. Thank you very much for joining me this morning, this afternoon even. I don't know what day it is. This afternoon. Do you know more about what's going on with this story? What's happened?
Well, it looks like the this particular extreme protest group, who call themselves Palestine Action, have done what is unfortunately characteristic for them now to break into a particular property and spray paint it, vandalise it, cause criminal action in the name of their cause. And no matter where your sympathies lie on the Middle East, and there'll be a real range of views, we should all be able to come together to say it's totally unacceptable for groups like this to routinely employ criminal action to try to get their way. It's bullying, it shows contempt for the public, and we should be taking a very firm stance against it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, there's quite strict security around this particular golf course. I mean, it's quite curious. I mean, that wasn't a 5-minute thing they did there, was it?
No, this group are highly organised. They are suspiciously well-resourced, and they are spending their time often terrorising working people. The way that they target defence factories and their workers is contemptuous, and is contemptible, and they simply should not be allowed to fundraise in the way that they do, to use social media freely to advertise their crimes. It's time that we say enough is enough against this group and take much firmer action than we are.
And obviously we've also got the other story linked to this today. We've got a man on Big Ben, or the tower at the Palace of Westminster, with a Palestinian flag. He's been up there since, we believe, 7 o'clock this morning, which has shut Westminster Bridge down, emergency vehicles there, stopping ambulances getting to St Thomas's Hospital on the south bank of the Thames. Do you think we're handling that situation the right way, or should we just have yanked him off, pulled him off the building?
Well, it's hard. I don't know the specifics of this, and when people get into these highly dangerous situations, and it puts emergency workers in a very difficult position, because they obviously also have a duty of care to these imbeciles who put themselves in harm's way. But this is another example of the appalling way in which extreme protesters treat the public. Now, a significant majority of the British public, they absolutely understand and agree with people's right to protest, to make their views heard, but they vociferously oppose this kind of highly disruptive action, which can ruin people's days. And as you say, in the cases of ambulances being stopped from getting to hospital, can put lives at risk. And for me, and I delivered a detailed report to the government on this, for which the recommendations are still being considered. My message to the politicians is that they need to understand where the public is in general on this, and to take a much firmer view against it.
Indeed. Thank you very much for joining us. That's former Labour MP Lord Warney there on Palestinian protesters going on both at Donald Trump's golf course and in London today. Now, do you want to be cheered up? Yeah, let's go for it, shall we? If you are in search of some winter sun, lucky you, here's a forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations for you.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're curious about what the weather's doing further afield, well, across the Mediterranean, there's a lot of unsettled weather at the moment, especially Iberia into the south of France. But for Greece, mostly fine, sunny spells, still a bit of a breeze for the Greek islands. Italy, towards the south, yes, plenty of settled weather, but towards the north and northwest, as well as the south of France, unsettled, but not as unsettled as Portugal, Spain, Gibraltar, Madeira, where heavy showers and strong winds will be continuing through the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Plenty of hazy sunshine across the UK today. There will be a few showers around, particularly across the far southwest and the far north, but feeling warm for the time of year. Winds coming in from the southwest, drawing in warm air from the near continent. You can see that with the yellows on the map there. Across the whole of the UK, temperatures well above average. Plenty of hazy sunshine across much of the UK, though cloudier skies for parts of Northern Ireland, fringes of Wales and the West Country, where a few showers are possible. Some further spells of rain pushing from Orkney into Shetland through the day as well. But most places dry in that sunshine, temperatures well above average, 16, 17, 18, possibly even 19 Celsius across North Wales into northwest England. So temperatures this time of year should be around 7 to 11 Celsius. Into the evening time, further showers across the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, but most places will be dry. 1 or 2 heavier bursts possible, but generally the rain will be light. Some hazy spells of sunshine ahead of dusk across Northern Ireland as the sun sets here. Plenty of dry weather for much of England and Wales, though still 1 or 2 showers possible in the west from some medium level cloud. Not too much to spoil things. And then a dry evening to come for most. Overnight it stays dry with clear spells and still some further patchy rain across the far north of Scotland. And it remains breezy across southwest England. Elsewhere winds will be light. We could see some mist and fog patches forming, particularly across central southern parts of Scotland, northern England, and here temperatures dropping to around 4 or 5 Celsius. But a sunny start for many. Mist and fog across parts of Scotland, northern England, slowly burning back to the coast through the day. And for most, it's a dry day, plenty of sunshine. Breezy across the southwest still, but sunnier here compared to Saturday. And rain just still affecting the far north of Scotland. Temperatures again well above average, reaching close to 20 Celsius by the afternoon. See you again soon.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you for your company this afternoon. We're nearly out of time together, but we're going to leave you on a lovely, cuddly high. It's nearly showtime at Crufts. It's the world's biggest dog show, and it's in full swing. Thousands of pampered poochies and proud owners battling out the honours, from tiny terriers to towering Great Danes. But who will win that Best in Show title? So we've had Jack Carson, our GB News West Midlands reporter, up there all day. And how's it going, Jack? He's been eaten.
Flat-coated. A flat-coated retriever, beautiful. Look, we're just having a great time. I mean, this is one of 24,000 dogs that has been here at Crufts over the 3 days we've still got another day to go tomorrow. And of course, we're all looking ahead to Best in Show. One of 7 finalists will be declared Best in Show. But let's talk to someone who knows a little bit about what it's like to compete here at Crufts. Sorry, I'm going to leave you alone. Let's talk to Ellen Charles. Thank you so much for joining us. Just tell us a little bit about what you've been doing here today.
Yeah, so we've been showing, we've got Tris the Weimaraner here, and we also had Leroy. So we've been exhibiting in the breed ring. So it's been a busy day.
And how do you prepare for something like that? Because I guess there is a lot of preparation that has to go into it, and I guess there's some pressure that's felt as well when it comes to the final moment.
Definitely. So I mean, preparation-wise, you want them well muscled and things, so they're getting the whole day really, the whole year. You're walking them and making sure they're in good shape and good nick. Obviously, he's a short breed. Short-haired breed, so there's not a huge amount of grooming activity, but with ones like the Irish setters, you want to keep on top of their coats constantly, so it really is a sort of whole year round sort of thing that you're...
And tell us about Tris, and the breed, and the kind of beautiful, he's got beautiful eyes, beautiful coat, and you must have some beautiful traits as well.
Yes, they're lovely dogs. They're so easy to live with. They're very intuitive. Everything you do, they just follow on. So their eyes, it's a distinctive breed feature. They've got yellow eyes. When they're puppies, they're born with brown eyes and blue eyes, and then they go to yellow. So they are lovely dogs, and here there was 130 odd of them today, so it's nice to see them all and chat to people that you wouldn't normally see. I had quite a few international competitors here today, which was lovely to see as well.
Ellen, thank you so much for joining us, and Tris especially as well, because it's not those kind of exhibiting and those competitions that take place as well. There's all kinds of different events. There's agility, we've had flyball, and he'll work to music as well, which has been absolutely fantastic. Here's a clip from when we caught up with the activity team.
Oh, Jack, thank you very much. I was transfixed by that lovely dog you were with there. So I was completely ignoring you and just gazing at the dog. Jack, thank you so much. Jack, have there been any little accidents yet? I mean, dogs can sometimes get overexcited with a TV reporter like yourself.
Well, no accidents on me, thankfully, which is the main thing. I've come away with some clean trousers, Dawn. But there are little places and spots of some sawdust and some sand down for dogs if they need to go somewhere. There's always a few little accidents because, of course, there is a lot of excitement here as well. Whether it's Tris or the beauty that we've got here, my new friend, I think.
That is gorgeous. Jack Carlson, thank you so much for bringing us all that action from Crufts, and we'll be back with you tomorrow. Well, I think that's it. We're running out of time. I've just got time to say a huge thank you to my wonderful panel, Andy Williams and Rakiba Sen. Thank you so much for your company. And thank you for joining us today. I appreciate weekends are busy. You've got lots of stuff to do. Don't go anywhere, though. Nana is up next. And we have got a great evening of entertainment for you. I just want to say a huge thank you. I'm back for lunch tomorrow, and it's going to be a spicy one. So you don't want to miss that. Have a lovely rest of your day. Join us tomorrow. Don't forget, Nana's up next. And here's your weather before I go. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. It stays fine through much of the weekend. Plenty of dry weather, warm sunshine as well, but it does turn colder next week. If we look at the bigger picture, the yellows and oranges on the map indicate temperatures well above average for the time of year, but just notice by the end of the weekend, blues indicating colder air starting to arrive across the far north of Scotland. For the end of Saturday, plenty of hazy sunshine ahead of dusk and then clear spells overnight for much of the country. There'll be some patchy rain across the far north of Scotland, but for most it'll be dry and winds generally fall light. We'll see some mist and fog patches forming, particularly across parts of southern Scotland and northern England, some dense patches to start Sunday morning here. But this will slowly burn back towards the coast as we head through the morning. We can see that band of rain still affecting parts of Orkney and Shetland and close to northern coast of mainland Scotland.